Chapter 1376 to 1400. Supremacy Games. 1376 The Day of Judgment. 3. Hey. Mananangul's words were cut off straight from his throat by the cosmos breaker slicing his neck apart like it was made out of jelly. As his head floated away in slow motion, countless eyes from across the universe bore witness to the chilling spectacle unfolding before them. Trillions of heartbeats synchronized in a chilling crescendo of tension, collective breaths held captive as they all watched on with a morbid fascination, their gazes glued to the enormous screens. The dull thud of his head falling lifeless on the ground rang loud in the deathly silence. Whether it was the comments section, the primogenitors' assembly, or the inner circle hall, everyone was hit by an indescribable shockwave that rippled through their hearts. While the citizens reacted to this brutal execution site, the primogenitors and leaders felt chills course on their spines at the notion that Felix might have truly killed a primogenitor. He really went for it. What an idea. Just as Saurus was about to mock Felix's stupidity, certain that his brother would be revived in a few hours, the universe had shattered his confidence into pieces. Rumble rumble. A phenomenal jolt seemed to shake the universe. The thrill of witnessing the unprecedented event surged across galaxies and solar systems like a wave, tearing through time and space. In response, the cosmos quivered, giving birth to the extraordinary event Universal Thunderclap. The sound erupted in the minds of every being across the universe, a cosmic applause that shook the very foundation of their existence. It wasn't heard through the cars, it was felt, deep down in the core of their being, as if the universe itself was rejoicing at the end of a horrifying era. Spectators near and far felt the shockwaves of the celestial event, their senses bombarded with overwhelming vibrations. Each clap was a booming testament to the end of a reign of terror, each echoing resonance a tribute to Felix's achievement. It was as if the universe itself was cheering for the vanquisher of a primogenitor, a human rising from a mortal to a deity and slaying one of the universe's gifts. A feat no one thought was possible before. It can't be. Impossible. The Darkins felt like they're hit by a thunderbolt at the horrid implication of the universe's reaction after their brother got killed. They knew what it meant, all primogenitors knew what it meant, yet none of them dared to believe it. In the heart of the execution ground, Felix stood tall and resolute. His gaze is cold and unwavering as he looked down upon the lifeless form of Mananangul, his enemy, his nightmare, now no more than a lifeless heap at his feet. As the magnitude of the moment seeped into their consciousness, a chilling sense of finality hung in the air. The deed was done, the nightmare was over and the universe exhaled, the echoes of Mananangul's reign of terror fading into the annals of cosmic history. Without voicing a single word, Felix turned around and shut down the stream, returning everyone to watching the previous active streams. Yet, no one focused on those streams as their minds were consumed with too many unanswered questions. While the citizens had no one to turn to, Erebus, Cherif, and the rest of the primogenitors reached out to the one and only person with the answer. Lord Osiris. Has Mananangul really died? Variations of this question were sent akin to a bullet barge on Lord Osiris' inbox from all primogenitors, dearly seeking to know the truth. The universe's celebration confirmed it by 99%, but they still felt that there was no way Mananangul would get off this easily. Alas, Lord Osiris sent them all one response. His death string was erased from reality and it's not being recreated again. This answer sent goosebumps across everyone's skin as they realized that Mananangul didn't just die, but had his soul erased from existence. Death strings being cut implied there was a chance of them emerging together and bringing the lost life. But, when they were erased, it was like Mananangul's soul never existed before. All of this would not have drawn much of a reaction from them if it was not for the second part of his statement. They actually did it. How? I asked how. Elder Aspidic alone wondered with a dazed look as he sat with his peers, who shared the same reaction. Even if he used concept destruction and erased his soul, a new one can always be created using his ultimate ability, but, to make that even impossible, how did they pull it off? Mananangul was talking about illusion and illusion domain, maybe the boy has used Lord Loki's bloodline and taken advantage of his godly domain. Siren guessed. The only way to find out is by asking them directly, but I doubt they will entertain our inquiries. Kumiho bit her nails in irritation as her curiosity was killing her. Do you think they will answer us if we proposed we add their student to our assembly? Jorogamo suggested, her playful smile seeming to speak with an ulterior motive. The hell, a primogenitor has just been slain by the hands of a previous mortal and you're suggesting we add him to our circle. Cherif retorted, his nostrils set in flames. That's exactly why I am suggesting to add him. Jorogamo said, he has just slain a primogenitor, something that none of us were able to pull off even after billions of years. Having him on our side is better than not. You have a good point, but I also agree with Cherif. Erebus shook his head, this isn't the time to even bring this matter up. Indeed, what will he think of us? He might actually think we are afraid of him. True. While everyone seemed in favor of adding Felix to their circle, none of them wanted to do it right now. Check new oval chpters at novelbin.com. As for finding out about how he got rid of Mananangul, well, they could only be patient and bury their burning curiosity. It might seem weird that none of them showed any sympathetic feelings toward one of their peers' death, but it really wasn't. The Darkins had fallen too hard from grace with all of their shenanigans. After they decided to use their descendants as hostages, enmity was already starting to emerge between them. So, even if all three of them died, none of them would feel an ounce of sadness or mourn for their passing. On the other hand, the Darkins had a totally opposite reaction after finding out the truth from Lord Osiris. A seething rage boiled within Saurus and Wendigo, their minds tainted with baleful darkness as the death of their partner reverberated through their consciousness. Staring out into the vast cosmic landscape, the stars shimmering like so many watching eyes, their anguish morphed into unadulterated wrath. I'll kill him, I will kill them all, I will kill them all. With a roar of fury that split the silence of space, Saurus flexed his control over gravity. He clenched his fist, and in response, the nearest star convulsed under the immense gravitation, its celestial body imploding in an explosive supernova that painted the nearby galaxies in streaks of fiery radiance. The remnants of the dying star were left to scatter aimlessly, becoming echoes of its former glory. Planets trembled in their orbits, yanked out of their tranquil paths by the unleashed gravity, and either shattered into cosmic debris or hurled into the depths of the black void. Wendigo, on the other hand, transformed his hatred into a tangible force, his darkness spreading outwards like a corrosive mist. Whole celestial bodies got shrouded in this murk, their vibrant existence quickly fading away. Stars that once twinkled with warmth and life now flickered feebly before being snuffed out entirely. His eerie darkness consumed planets in its wake, their surface swiftly disintegrating and vanishing into oblivion. The realms of space around them transformed into a barren wasteland, a testament to their profound wrath. Their bereavement resonated through the cosmos as they vented their sorrow and rage, transforming solar systems into cosmic graveyards. Their brotherhood, which lasted for more than 5 billion years, had finally been broken. The worst part? Mananangul's soul had been erased, which meant they could not even visit or meet him in the spirit realm. He was gone once and for all, and they could not accept their reality. 1 down, 2 more to go. As they vented their rage and anger, they had no clue that Felix was already preparing himself for his next target, for his next prey, and for his next revenge. 1377 A new partnership. After spending days venting their anguish and anger on anything in sight, the Darkins had finally put an end to it. What do we do now? We have lost the Council's support, we have antagonized Lord Chaos, and now we have lost our brother, everything is going to sh*t. Wendigo muttered, his desolate eyes were seen affixed on the eternal darkness before him, his work of art. Everything started going to sh*t the moment we met that wretch. Saurus uttered coldly, I don't care what happens to me, I am not going to settle down until I make sure the last strand of his soul is extinguished. The death of their brother had established an eternal enmity between the parties and nothing said or done was ever going to change it. Felix had no issues with this as he had no intentions of dropping his revenge plans anytime soon. Whoosh. Who's there? Out of the chaotic storm of cosmic annihilation, a figure of singular power emerged. Lucifer, draped in robes of shifting crimson shadows, seemed to glide through the void, less eyes, cosmic orbs of gold, held an ethereal gleam as they settled on the grieving Darkins. You. How? The Darkins retracted their aggression as it was replaced by stunned looks at the sight of Lucifer, alive and breathing. When they witnessed how Felix had eliminated Lucifer using totality collapse, they were 100% certain that he was dead, that ability was simply too destructive and even the Demon Lord should not be able to survive it. Yet, here he was. Saurus, Wendigo, his voice echoed through the emptiness, a soothing balm against the relentless backdrop of their rage-induced destruction. He extended his hand, palm upward, and a brilliant glow sparked into existence, casting a surreal illumination over the desolate light of galaxies. My condolences for your loss. Mananangul was a formidable being and he didn't deserve to go out in that shameful manner. Before they could respond, he declared with a cold stare, filled with unhindered hatred that commanded their attention. I am offering you my alliance, your pain is your fuel, but your rage blinds you. You seek revenge, and I have the means to grant it. With everything that Lucifer had watched, he realized that ambushing Felix at his weakest moment wasn't a viable option any longer. If he kept waiting and biding his time, the remaining Darkins could get eliminated and he would be truly left all alone against him and his faction. Alliance? You have the means to grant it. Saurus scoffed, bold words from someone who got eliminated without even touching that brat's hair strand. Lucifer wasn't too pleased with his provocative statement, but he didn't argue back with him on it. I agree, I have shown a shameful performance when I fought him, and I won't make any excuses for it. Lucifer stated, but I have returned stronger than ever and geared with tools to both resist his illusion abilities and end his reign. Illusion abilities. He must have really put our brother in an illusion domain. Wendigo frowned. Their assumption was finally confirmed and this didn't please them one bit. They knew that their fate would have been the same or even worse if they were caught inside the illusion domain without knowing about it. Our brother had no chance at all against him, curse that bastard Lord Loki, how can he give up on his F***king domain so easily? In the end, both of them switched their anger to Lord Loki, knowing that an elemental lord of his status should cherish his domain more than anything. For him to hand it out so easily made them extremely pissed off. Don't get sidetracked, our target is Felix and only Felix. Lucifer narrowed his eyes coldly. Don't lump us with you just yet. Saurus sneered. First, tell us everything we need to know about your supposed mother and your true motive from that rogue. Then, we will consider whether to work with you or not. I thought you would ask that. Lucifer created a throne from evil energy and sat on it before them, then, he confessed everything without holding back, knowing that primogenitors could detect 5 lies from miles away. When he was done explaining his situation, the Darkins didn't know how to react. Other half. Ascension? Demon God? Does he think we are in a video game or a novel? Saurus looked at his partner, seeking help to believe this lunatic. He doesn't seem to be lying, so he might be either onto something, or he is just delusional. Wendigo knitted his eyebrows, though if his mother was really the paragon of sins and she is responsible for his mission, then as peculiar as it sounds, we know how strange Unigens are. Saurus looked back at Lucifer and asked with a solemn tone, as much as you claim yourself to be out of use, I don't think so. But, you can help us convince your mother to give us a hand. At least, to take care of her void creature. Void creature? He must be talking about that raccoon. Nemo's cute image surfaced in Lucifer's mind immediately. Since he couldn't enter the void realm or remain in it for a prolonged period without his mother being around, he wasn't able to follow Felix and the Darkins inside and watch their battle. But, he was still able to guess what happened as he had experienced Nemo's prowess personally and knew that he could be considered a primogenitor too. Unfortunately, his response had disappointed them. That's not happening, my mother was forced into slumber after using her powers to revive me. Lucifer shook his head, it's doubtful if she will wake up anytime soon. **T. Saurus and Wendigo wanted him to be lying so badly, but there wasn't an ounce of deceit. This caused their original plan of seeking the Elaragon's help to go up to flames before they could even cross half the distance. Like it or not, I am your only ally in the entire universe and it will be truly foolish of you to reject my proposal because of your pride. Lucifer disclosed, his eyes glinting with unspoken promises, his aura radiating an unyielding resolve. Take my hand and we will deliver a blow that will shake the universe to its very core, and Felix shall learn the true meaning of despair. Soros and Wendigo looked at each other in silence for a few seconds. Then, both of them dropped most of their guard and said simultaneously, "What do you have in mind?" They knew that he was right, their options were too limited and they were already outnumbered, making them incapable of turning hack-free help. "We'll lay low and stay low until the SG Alliance conquers the 7 demon realms and turn it into one of its esteemed territories," Lucifer smiled coldly, "then, we'll strike everyone indiscriminately until their leader will have no choice but to get smoked outside LL. New ST rise at N0VE/LBI/.cm. The plan was neither unique, smart, nor out of the box. Yet, the Darkins knew that there weren't many options to bait out Felix. Using his people was always the fastest and easiest method, the only downside was angering even the other primogenitors since they would be attacking the Alliance for real and there was no way the primogenitors would sit and watch. If we angered the entire council, even if we killed that bastard and his faction, we'll have no place in the entire universe." Wendigo frowned, "It's nothing different than a death sentence." As much as they wanted to avenge their brother and kill Felix, they weren't foolish to aggravate tens of primogenitors at once. Their previous plan was to kidnap the troops to bait out Felix and leave them at peace, which should have irritated the primogenitors but not pushed them to make a move. "Then, let me handle it," Lucifer offered with a faint cold smile. "No one knows we work together." Soros and Wendigo traded glances and chilling grins couldn't help but blossom on their lips, an acknowledgement of their agreement. A couple of days later. "Anything?" "Nope, I already told you that they have taken their bracelets off," Lord Loki answered while placing a card on the table. "That's disappointing, I thought they will be making a big fuss to find me." Felix shook his head. Felix had found out about the utter destruction left behind by the Darkins during their venting process, but this was not what he wanted. He knew that their brother's death would take a toll on them and give rise to them to seek him out. For vengeance. He even left behind him clues of his location to bait them while they're at their most vulnerable state. Yet days went by and nothing of such happened. He did not even receive a curse from them, which honestly had risen some questions in his mind. "Just keep your guard up, they won't let this slide and it's clear that they're in control of their emotions, so they will come at you harder than ever," Thor advised with an earnest tone. "I understand." Felix cracked his neck with a faint cold smirk, "They can wait all they want, but time isn't in their favor." "You finally planning to prepare for the Origin Realm?" Asna asked. "It's best to start early." Felix switched his tone to a grave one, "I am trying to go for a natural breakthrough, so I'll have no idea how much will take me to achieve it if it was even possible to pull it off." Felix understood that breaking through the Origin Realm in a natural fashion was a different beast entirely. Degree. He had seen what happened to Noah when he wanted to give it a try. He didn't just fail, he was absolutely smashed in the first seconds, which forced Fenrir into intervening and gaining control over his wild bloodline. Noah managed to fight against 1% or 2% of Fenrir's bloodline separately until he finished the entire devouring process. Meanwhile, Olivia received Lady Yggdrasil's extra help as she pushed only 0.5% of her bloodline at her, which was the reason she got a bit weaker benefits than Noah. Felix muttered to himself. 1% to 100% is a massive jump. Even those low percentages were close enough to send Noah and Olivia to their maker. The notion of devouring an entire 100% without any assistance truly seemed like an unclimbable mountain. "Let's see what I am dealing with." Felix gave Queen AI the appropriate data to replicate the Origin Realm breakthrough and make sure it was as close as possible to the real world. Since no one besides Noah had attempted to do this, the data given wasn't really that accurate, but it should be enough to create a similar experience. Obviously, Queen AI's processing power was enough to account for Felix having only primogenitor's bloodlines in his system. "You may begin." Felix sat cross-legged on the floor, his eyes shut in concentration. His hands were clasped tightly in front of him as he focused all his will to do something he was preparing his entire life for, unleashing a war on his foreign bloodline and taking control back. The moment Felix released his aggression on Lord Loki's bloodline, making it as clear as day that he wanted to dominate and devour its existence, the peaceful bloodline seemed to have been awakened into a slumbering dragon. Ka-thumbai, I. All of Felix's active 5 hearts sent a singular thundering beat simultaneously after Lord Loki's bloodline began its retaliation. With that, the war in Felix's veins was launched. The 1% human bloodline within him, having been empowered by the contributions of 6 primogenitor bloodlines, surged forth like an unstoppable tide, attempting to consume the overwhelming presence of Lord Loki's bloodline that constituted 99% of his system. L. A tormented groan escaped Felix's lips as he felt his insides churn, his body racked by the internal struggle. He felt the slow, creeping spread of his human bloodline, each cell it devoured resonating with victorious defiance. "He is doing 100 times much better than your boy." Thor addressed Fenrir as he watched Lord Loki's bloodline getting eaten rapidly. Having 6 primogenitors' bloodlines on his back sure made a huge difference. Alas, it was still a 1% vs 99%. The moment the tide crested at 20%, a sudden, agonizing pain ripped through Felix's body, causing him to fall on his back and let out a primal scream that reverberated through the empty room. A scream he almost never released even after all the crappy integrations he went through. His body started convulsing, the room shaking in response to the raw, unchecked power surging within him. Just as quickly as it had begun, it stopped. All test novel on novelben/.cm. Felix's body went limp, collapsing onto the floor as if his strings had been cut. His form shimmered, and then, with a squelching sound, it seemed to melt away, collapsing into a grotesque pool of flesh and blood. 2. Aegisna and the tenants were left staring at what became of Felix with stunned expressions, their smiles from before frozen in their faces. His death happened so fast, so quickly, they weren't even given the time to process it thoroughly. Some time later, Felix was returned to his original seated position. His expression was grim and unamused. His first attempt to break through the Origin Realm had ended in catastrophic defeat and the worst part, he didn't even know what happened. "I don't get it, the pain was like an angry ocean, but I felt like I could still sail through it and reach the shore." Felix frowned, "What the hell happened?" "We don't know as well." Asna shook her head, "You were doing fine until you reached 20%. Then, you just instantly collapsed on yourself without even giving us the chance to react. Is this related to the lack of data given to Queen AI, making her incapable of calculating an accurate representation of the process? Hormungandr guessed. Nope. Lord Loki defended his precious daughter. My little girl will never create a random simulation out of her head without first informing you about it. If she had insufficient data to create the process, you would have known. So, this is really how it's going to end for Felix if he dared to go for a natural breakthrough. Asna felt chills creep down her spine. She never feared the Origin Realm breakthrough since it could be interfered with by them and help Felix if the process seemed to have derailed from its rightful path. She was more scared about normal integrations than this, but now? She finally realized how dire the situation was. This is quite bad. Thor said with a stern tone, we didn't even know what went wrong before you died, which means if you did degree this for real and we couldn't recognize a serious danger to you, you will end up dead for real right in front of our eyes. Felix always knew that doing a natural breakthrough wasn't going to be a walk in the park, which was the reason he didn't desire to prolong his battle with the Darkins until he made it happen. It wasn't certain and he feared that he would end up dead in the process before he could even avenge his loved ones. Now, he realized that he made the right decision as the breakthrough was even more complicated than he assumed. There are too many questions that need to be solved before you can attempt this for real. Lady Sphinx said calmly, why did you fly through 20% and then instantly died? Is that something like a hard wall? If it was as such, is there more at 40%? 60%? And even 100%? Will the difficulty increase explosively after each wall? Most importantly, why are there even walls? The universe does not do anything without a reason, so for such a thing to exist, it means that end reward will be much more than we anticipated. Lady Sphinx's questions were all within reason and explained the situation perfectly. When other bloodliners attempt the breakthrough, they have it hard from the start to the finish. In the case of Noah and Olivia, their masters made controlled the tempo of the process to their comfort limit. Now, the process seemed to have evolved in a different direction with another condition introduced. Walls, how do I exactly break through those walls? I doubt it's pain or will related. Felix wondered, his eyes reflecting turmoil within him. If it was either pain or will related, Felix knew that he would have passed through the 20% with flying colors. In the eyes of other bloodliners, he was the readiest for the breakthrough as his will was iron through hundreds of life and death battles. There is only one way to find out, repetitive tests. Lady Sphinx said, causing Felix's skin to have goosebumps coursing through it. Isn't that a bit too much? Even Asna, the previous #1 fan of watching Felix in pain, did not like the sound of her suggestion. In this case, he has only 3 options. Toughen through the torture and find out the mystery, give up on a natural breakthrough and receive Lord Loki's help, or jump straight into the real thing and force the breakthrough. Lady Sphinx disclosed. I will do it, Sai, even as a deity, I have to get tortured, when will this ends? Felix's eyes could be seen getting somewhat watery as he truly had enough of this sadistic cultivation system. He knew that he could always throw the white towel and receive Lord Loki's help, securing the breakthrough 100% in an instant. But, Felix would never forgive himself for doing this as he did not go through so much to reach the touchline and then cheat his way up. As for doing it for real, hoping for maybe a different result, he was not that foolish to throw his life into the spirit realm this early. Without further ado, Felix toughened up and restarted the breakthrough from the beginning, but this time, his mind was occupied on the 20% wall and he ended up failing to even devour the first 5%. So, he fixed his mistake and went for it again after a short break. Unfortunately, the moment he reached 20%, the same thing happened against his will, his body fell through into a house of cards. This SNT working, I have to be there and study what happens on a cellular level when you reach 20%. Lady Sphinx said, sending one of her clones to Felix's UVR room. When he heard this, Felix wanted to cry but had no tears. Why can not anything be easy and simple? 1379 No other alternatives. In the heart of Lady Sphinx's laboratory, Lady Sphinx examined the string of vibrant lights representing Felix's DNA as it struggled for dominance during the Origin Realm breakthrough. Monitors hummed, casting an eerie blue light onto her face as she watched the brutal war taking place on a microscopic level. Felix's human bloodline, amplified by the power of 6 primogenitor bloodlines, was engaging in a fierce battle against the dominant 99% of his genetic makeup. The fierce red strands of Felix's empowered human bloodline were seeping into the icy blue strands of Lord Loki's genes attempting to devour them. Her sharp eyes didn't miss a single fluctuation as she analyzed every speck of movement within the genetic strands. The battle waged on in favor of Felix till he had reached the cursed 20% threshold. Then, the scene within the genetic plane began to take a dark turn. Suddenly, the icy blue strands of Lord Loki's bloodline retaliated fiercely, igniting a process Lady Sphinx recognized with growing shock. It's a mutual destruction event, she muttered to herself, how is it even possible? She watched, powerless, as Lord Loki's intelligent genes, instead of succumbing to Felix's devouring power, triggered a self-destruct mechanism that forced both genetic strands to collapse together. It was as if they'd decided to implode rather than allow themselves to be conquered. The monitors wailed a high-pitched alarm as Felix's life signs flatlined. The glowing DNA model became a chaotic swirl of colors before it blinked out, leaving the laboratory bathed in darkness. Lady Sphinx could only watch in stunned silence, a cold realization settling in her heart. They had underestimated Lord Loki's genes. No, they had underestimated the intelligence of their own genetics. What an insidious defense mechanism, she murmured, her mind racing to find a solution. A few moments later, Felix was revived in his position, his body seemed in its peak form, but his mind was on the verge of tearing itself apart at the agonizing pain he went through repeatedly. So? He asked while massaging his temples. I was wrong, it wasn't anything like walls placed down by the universe. Lady Sphinx shared with a solemn tone, it's even worse. Lord Loki's genetics are intelligent enough to seek mutual destruction the moment they sense themselves to be in a losing battle. *T, that's really the worst possible scenario. Thor commentated. All of them understood immediately that Felix would be left with no choice but to request Lord Loki's help to stop the mutual destruction. But doing this meant that breaking the natural breakthrough and everything would be for naught. Now what? Is there any solution to this? Asna asked. Unfortunately, there isn't. Lady Sphinx shook her head. If Felix wants to still go for a natural breakthrough, it means he has to completely devour and dominate Lord Loki's bloodline in the first second. This is possible only if Felix's spiritual pressure was one rank higher than Lord Loki's bloodline. One rank higher than an elemental lord, doesn't that means I have to be a Unigine before breaking through the origin realm? Felix was left stunned. This really wasn't going on par with his plan. He always knew that the natural breakthrough was going to be difficult, but this was the next level. Are you sure about this? Isn't there any other solution? This can't be it. Asna inquired with a concerned tone, knowing that Felix was having difficulty accepting this. If there was a different solution, I would have suggested it. Lady Sphinx stressed, you can always go for an assisted breakthrough, there is no shame in it. I am starting to consider it, sigh. Felix smiled wryly. Felix could have acted like a child throwing tantrums and letting everyone know that he wouldn't break through without anyone's help, but this development had truly shattered all of his dreams and wishes. Becoming a Unigine? It was foolish to even think of such a thing when he was barely considered a full-on primogenitor yet. Let's leave this for later, take some rest now. Thor advised, there is no rush to make such a decision. Felix nodded his head as he left the laboratory and returned to his house, where Asna was already waiting for him in the living room. He sat next to her and stared at the ceiling with a thoughtful expression. What are you thinking about? She asked as she placed her head next to his and stared at the ceiling as well. I have a strong feeling that if I miss the opportunity to go for a natural breakthrough, I will regret it for a lifetime. He said. Well, what else can be done? Sometimes, there are things that are just not meant to be. Asna sighed, her smooth hand caressing her lover's face. She knew how hard this decision was for Felix to make as he always picked the best path for himself to get closer and closer to those beings. This was one of those precious moments where he had to make the best choice for his future, but at the same time, he couldn't. There is no need to think about something we can't solve right now. Asna smiled charmingly, wanna go out to eat? I can eat. Felix agreed. There was not much to be done at the moment and Felix would rather not rush and kick off the origin breakthrough right away, especially, when his mind was this distracted. Sometime earlier, at the exact moment of the universal thunderclap when Felix decapitated Mananangle. Rumble rumble. The thunderclap was loud and noisy everywhere else, but the moment it reached the dimension of infinite possibilities, it resembled muffed-out fireworks. This was the realm of celestial majesty that existed parallel to the mortal world, yet vastly different. It was a realm ruled by none other than the high and mighty Unigines. Their eternal kingdom sprawled over a vast and timeless space, stretching to horizons that seemed to merge with the cosmos itself. As one stepped into this kingdom, they're greeted by a sight of sheer resplendence, a symphony of colors and energies that reflected the divine essence of the Unigines. Lustrous buildings of crystalline structure sprawled across the realm, their surfaces edged with ancient symbols and cosmic runes, each reflecting the divine essence of the Unigines who resided within. The sky of the eternal kingdom was an infinite kaleidoscope, filled with iridescent clouds that shone with a myriad of colors mirrored by the shimmering celestial bodies that punctuate the astral canvas. It was a constant dance of cosmic radiance that illuminated the kingdom, bathing everything in a soft, ethereal glow. At the heart of the kingdom stood the grand palace of the Unigines, a structure of breathtaking beauty and grandeur. It was a monument of divine architecture, built from celestial materials and ordained with galaxies. The palace seemed to resonate with the very rhythm of creation itself. The air of the eternal kingdom was imbued with an all-pervading peace, a composure that flew through everything and everyone. It was a realm where the woes of the mortal world seemed distant, reduced to mere whispers in the grand symphony of divine existence. Yet, all residing Unigines in this magnificent kingdom were alarmed by the miffed-out noise of the thunderclap. When it was over, they returned to their daily routine, resembling a royal noble district, where only aristocrats resided. While most Unigines ignored the thunderclap, the same didn't apply to the organisms inside the grand palace. It is getting closer and closer, discover. WStories on no/e/lbin.com. Why do you sound surprised? This is your millionth cycle already. Knowing it or not, it does not change the fact that it's coming to an end. Well, it was one of the most interesting cycles so far, it's a shame it's coming to an end so soon. A moment of silence took place. So, who wants to do the honor this time? I'll take care of it, it's been a while since I have sent anything to the mortal world. Be gentle. Do not worry, he won't feel a thing, kikiki. 1380 Y. Beneath the soft glow of the multicolored nebulae sat Felix and Asna. Their table was adorned with exotic fruits and dishes that could not be found in any market. A tranquil aura filled the air, the silence between them brimming with anticipation and mutual understanding. Felix lifted his glass, swirling the sparkling celestial nectar within. You know, he began, his voice breaking the silence, I never imagined we would have made it so far when we first met. Asna chuckled. Likewise. I guess this is a pretty good point to relax a bit and take a break. Well, Lucifer is dead, Mananangle is dead, and the other Darkins have gone to hiding. Asna nodded, even the Scalanas matters are being taken care of by your clones. You have reached the top of the universe and conquered what cannot be conquered. There is no way forward now besides heading after those beings, so, you're right, this is the perfect moment to take a well-deserved break. Asna spoke from the heart and Felix could feel her sincerity. He raised the glass towards Asna, his eyes sparkling with sincerity. To us, and to the stories we have yet to write. Asna, in response, gave him a gentle smile, raising her own glass. To us indeed, she said, and to the mysteries we're yet to unravel. Their glasses clinked softly, the sound echoing around them, carried by the cosmic wines. Felix took a sip, savoring the exotic taste, then put down his glass. He turned towards Asna, his gaze steady. Asna, he began, hesitating for a moment before he continued, do you ever think about our future? Asna took a deep breath and looked at him, her expression softening. I do, Felix, she admitted. I think about it a lot. But, nothing is certain. So, for now, let's just enjoy this moment, you and I. Felix nodded, appreciating the honesty in her response. He knew that Isna was in no control over her life as the moment she break free from his soul, she would carry over celestial duties, which meant being put with iron shackles like the ones on Paragon of Sins. When that happened, what kind of relationship she would possess with Felix? Only time could tell. Felix reached out, taking her hand into his. Isna, in whatever future awaits us, I want you to remember one thing. That my feelings for you are the only certainty in this uncertain existence of mine. Isna looked at their entwined hands, then back at Felix. She smiled, her eyes glistening under the starlight. I'll remember that, I promise. And so, beneath the celestial canvas of the illusionary universe, they dined, their hearts beating in unison, their minds filled with thoughts of each other, their souls intertwining in the silence of the night. Alas! This heavenly meeting was destined to end in this very place, at this very second. Suddenly, a hum reverberated in the atmosphere, barely noticeable at first, but rapidly growing into a deafening roar. The stars in the sky seemed to lose their luster as the air around them pulsated with ominous energy. A spear of pure light descended from the heavens, tearing through the dimensions, divine retribution aimed at none other than Felix. Felix's mind was inside the UVR, so his body merely convoluted instinctively to the upcoming damage for a millisecond. Before Felix could react to his instincts, the smite hit him. There was no scream, no time for evasions or resistance, the divine light pierced through his body in an instant. An audible gasp echoed through as the light dissipated, revealing Felix. His body was frozen in place, a look of shock etched on his face before it slumped, lifeless to the ground. Smoke arose from his body as it seemed to have not been affected in the slightest by the golden spear, but Felix's soul was no longer in his body. The smile that had once adorned his face now seemed tragically out of place. The tenants were silent, every eye wide and filled with disbelief. The lively and bustling consciousness space collapsed on their heads akin to an inflated balloon getting popped. Yet, not a single primogenitor or tenant managed to utter a single word, all of their bodies began to disintegrate in front of their own eyes, returning to the ocean that seemed to be falling into an abyss. Looks like he has finally gotten their attention, what a shame. Lord Shiva sighed carelessly, still chilling on his beach chair while his wisp was breaking into pieces. Meanwhile, Thor, Lady Sphinx, Hormungandr, Fenrir, Carbuncle, Elder Kraken, Lord Chaos, and even Lord Loki seemed to be incapable of comprehending what had just happened. Just a moment ago, some of them were spying on Felix's date to entertain themselves while the rest were either playing cards chess or smoking pong together. All it took was a millisecond before this entire world collapsed on itself, not giving them a single moment to attempt to fix it. In less than a second, Thor, Fenrir, and Hormungandr could only trade one last glance with each other before they got erased. Carbuncle took one last puff as his body returned to the ether. Lord Chaos, Elder Kraken, and Lady Sphinx looked around them with penetrative analyzing eyes. Lastly, Lord Loki was just curious about the whole thing. Then, there was darkness in the consciousness space as the lights were finally turned off and nothing but a vacant void remained behind. A scene occurs during only one situation, the passing of the soul's owner. Felix lay lifeless on the ground. His end had come not in battle, not in a duel of power, but by a smite from the heavens, a death so instant that it left him and everyone else stunned, their minds unable to comprehend the loss. The sound of a body hitting the ground reverberated, breaking the silence. Discover WStories on no/e/lbin.com. But it was the silence that followed, the silence of loss, of grief, of disbelief, that was the loudest of all. The heavens had claimed their own, and in doing so, had left a void in the hearts of those who had known Felix, a void that could never be filled. At the time of the spear, smiting Felix from the heavens, time froze as he was thrust into the void of the unimaginable. The world around him blurred as his body went numb, a profound chill spreading from the point of contact, enveloping him completely. His widened stunned eyes stared at his beloved who was experiencing the same fate as him. Asna was just as dazed as him, watching her lover's body and her own disintegrating into light particles. In the real world, Felix's body crumpled, hitting the ground with a thud that echoed ominously in the silence that followed. The residual light from the spear of the heavens faded, revealing Felix's lifeless form sprawled across the ground. The vibrant power source that always enveloped him was extinguished. In the silence, his face held a tragic calm, eyes wide in an eternal question. The word echoed in the minds of the tenants, a poignant reminder of the abrupt end. Felix's existence, once so vibrant and full of life, was now eerily silent and still. A hero had fallen, and all that remained was the echo of his last thought, a question to the heavens that had smitten him, a word that now lingered as a ghostly reminder of the abrupt end. Why? 1381 The Whale of the Universe. While Felix's last thought was a question targeting his unjust and unfair death, Asna's last thought was a curse. F***CKU. She knew who did this and the notion of them daring enough to lay their hands on her lover set her heart ablaze. Alas, her rage didn't last for long as the moment Felix died, she followed him instantly. The moment their merged soul came out of his body, the universe wailed, it did not speak in words but in actions. Rumble rumble. The stars shivered, their dazzling lights flickering as if in response to a cold, bitter wind. Planets rumbled, their cores shaken to the point where lands cracked and oceans boiled. In every corner of the cosmos, space quaked. A chorus of celestial bodies echoed their dissent against this unnatural act, their harmonious dance disrupted by the unspeakable loss of Asna. Cosmic dust swirled like angry storms, painting the sky with hues of despair. Galaxies seemed to vibrate in fury, their spiral arms contorting as though writhing in pain. Discover WStories on no/e/lbin.com. The ethereal lights, once a testament to the universe's beauty, now appeared as morning candles, their shimmer had turned into a hue of melancholy, a silent tribute to the lost life. Supernovas, those grand cosmic fireworks, exploded prematurely. Their spectacularly devastating demise sent shockwaves across the universe, their deafening roar echoing the heart-rending sentiment shared by all. What was once a spectacular natural phenomenon was now an anguished cry, a lullaby of sorrow. A universal apocalypse seemed imminent, and the universe itself mourned the death of Asna. This was not a regular death, it was a blow to the cosmic equilibrium, a transgression against the very fabric of existence. And so, the universe roared in fury and wept in sorrow, the cosmic heartache echoing through infinity, a chilling reminder of the price of taking a life that mattered to the cosmos. Fear rippled across all entities, mortal or not, as they faced the wrath of a grieving universe. The stars shook, the galaxies wailed, and the planets rumbled. A universal cry against the loss of one of its closest and dearest beings to it. While all of this seemed to have taken a lot of time, it barely lasted 1 second after Felix's body lay flat inside his VR pod. Thud. Lady Sphinx and Fenrir charged through Felix's room in his spaceship and swiftly got him outside of the VR pod. Ignoring the ongoing universal mayhem, they placed him on the floor, uncaring about how hot his body was or the smoke that was continuously coming out of him. Fenrir. I will try. Fenrir reached out with his hand and released the chilling cold of absolute zero, wanting to freeze Felix and his soul in time before it escaped from his body. He knew that if he pulled this off, there would still be hope to revive Felix easily with either Lord Zervan, Lord Quetzalcoatl, or Lord Osiris' help, and they wouldn't struggle too much. Alas, just as he was about to release it, Lady Sphinx muttered with a heavy heart, "We were too late." When Fenrir heard her, he turned around and saw that Lady Sphinx's eyes had 4 triangles in them and were shimmering with grey light. Too damn late. Every fiber of her being screamed in denial, a raw pain coursing through her as she watched the soul, his essence, gently floating upwards, leaving behind the lifeless vessel that had once housed it. Her usually bright, observant eyes were dull, brimming with anguish that was ineffable. Fenrir didn't say anything, knowing that Lady Sphinx might not like showing her emotions in public, but she treated Felix more as a son than as a student. To see one's son die so suddenly was a shocking event on its own, but to see his own soul flying away from you was a different pain entirely. Abruptly, Lady Sphinx was forced to close her eyes against her will. I got kicked out," she said, her eyes somewhat bleeding, suffering from the consequences of spying into the spirit realm. Albeit late, Nemo rushed next to Felix from a void rift and started to nudge him with his head while whimpering inaudibly. Meanwhile, Candace was seen standing near the void rift with her hand covering her mouth and eyes filled with tears, wanting to get close to Felix, but knowing that she couldn't be out of any help. But the same didn't apply to Nemo as the moment he realized that Felix wasn't waking up, his eyes suddenly turned green and the symbol of greed appeared above his head. It was of a fox with 6 red eyes and green fur, and it was looking menacingly at everyone in the room. Nemo looked at the fox and squealed at it while nudging his head with Felix's shoulder, making it understand that he wanted him to be revived. The green fox seemed alive as it scanned Felix's body and its flying spirit. When it looked at it too deeply, it turned back and voiced the price for his revival. Everyone knew it as all of them had greed symbols appear above their heads, and even an additional one on top of Nemo's head. Yet, the fox still shook its head and disappeared on its own, causing Nemo to start squealing at it angrily. I knew it. Lady Sphinx sighed in disappointment. While Fenrir and Candace had some faith that Nemo would be able to revive Felix, she already recognized that wasn't going to happen. If it was just Felix alone, she wouldn't have doubted Nemo's capabilities, but Felix's soul was merged with Isna. Even if the entire universe was sacrificed as a price for the sin of greed, it would never grant Nemo the wish to revive a unigen of Isna's standings. That's why those symbols lit up above their heads, as it made it clear that even if all of them were placed for a trade right now, it wasn't close to being enough to pay the price. Nemo could not override those rules as they're the laws of greed, and he was a mere controller of them, not their creator. So, that's it. Candace sobbed, they're gone. Besides Nemo's painful squeals, no one answered her question. While Fenrir had nothing to respond with, Lady Sphinx was deep in her thoughts. Even in death, she took control over her emotions and turned on her rational cold thinking to find a solution to either undo this or at least help Felix and Isna in the spirit realm. Lord Quetzalcoatl hasn't been reachable for more than a decade now, and he should be in the spirit realm or some weird corner in the universe. Lord Zervan won't help us as this is clearly related to those beings and he wants nothing to do with them. The same applied to Lord Osiris. So, chances of reviving Felix and Isna are close to none, and it's a waste of time to think in this area. Most importantly, Lady Sphinx gave up on Felix's instant revival for another reason too. As a unigen, Isna's soul brilliance is beyond anything else in this universe, and even with Felix's achievements and such, he couldn't amount to 1% of her brilliance. This ensures that the Karens will get them picked up before anyone else and take them to the heavenly plane. The moment someone steps there, he will be under the jurisdiction of the Spirit's Guardian's government, and it will be near impossible to pull their souls from there. Spirit's realm was one thing and the heavenly plane was another. It was like the spirit realm was the desert and the heavenly plane was its soul-guarded oasis. Anyone who entered the oasis could not leave anymore unless permission was granted by the Supreme Leader. With Isna's unique soul, the Karen will most definitely take them straight to the Spirit's Guardian. I don't know what he will do next, but Kraken said he does not kill anyone, so both of them will be fine. No, Isna will be fine, but Felix will get thrown inside the heavenly plane system, and with his memories being erased completely, he will be reborn there as a new one. We cannot have that happening. Lady Sphinx reached the crux of her plan. My first agenda is to create another wisp of Kraken and establish a connection with him in the spirit realm. She knew that Elder Kraken would work as hard as possible to help out Felix and Isna in the realm of the spirits, but she wanted to know how things develop there and provide help from her end. Second, I'll revive all the dead tenants' wisps, which shouldn't be difficult. Since only Thor, Jeremiah, Carbuncle, Kraken, and Lord Shiva were lost for good, it would be easy for her to create their wisps with human test subjects, helping them reach 99% in their cultivation. Only Elder Kraken will be difficult as I need more soul threads to make one wisp. I cannot do it without Isna's help to extract those threads. Lady Sphinx thought of Lord Loki. With his soul and mental expertise, he can help with this. Speaking of the devil, Lord Loki's holographic image appeared unannounced from Lady Sphinx's bracelet. What an interesting way to go out. He commentated with an intrigued tone. Though, if they wanted him dead, why bother to send his soul to the spirit realm instead of erasing it? That's one of the questions burning in my mind, but it's not the time to focus on the whys. Lady Sphinx uttered calmly, help me revive Kraken's wisp. 1382. A myriad of reactions. Sure, I am also interested in seeing how this film will end. Lord Loki said, his smile stretching from ear to ear. Felix and Isna's death affected almost everyone in the consciousness space but Lord Loki. He was here for the sake of his entertainment, nothing more, nothing less. Fenrir, freeze him, we will need his body in case we found a way to snatch his soul back. Lady Sphinx requested. Fenrir did as he was told and Lady Sphinx took Felix's corpse with her to the Witch Empire, uncaring about the chaos that arose in the SG Alliance. The moment Felix passed away and Queen Ai had deemed his soul to be gone, she released a private announcement to the inner circle leaders. All of them reacted in a similar fashion, shock and disbelief. Even though the news came from the most credible source, it didn't make it any easier for them to believe it. King Maxwell is dead? What kind of sick joke is this? Reading the words, King Tresnor's golden eyes widened in shock, the pupils constricting into thin slits, his body stiffened, and a low growl, so deep it was more a vibration in the air than a sound, echoed through the grand hall. Felix. His voice rumbled, echoing off the stone walls. F0LLOWW new hapters at nov/e/l/bin/.com. Disbelief marred his fierce features, etching deep lines of confusion and dread. The words didn't fit together. The reality didn't make sense. Not Felix, not the indestructible Grand Supreme. Then, the disbelief quickly morphed into anger, hot and potent. A sudden, guttural roar erupted from his chest, resounding through the halls and causing the very foundations of his castle to tremble. His muscular frame shook with the force of his rage, and with a swift, uncontrolled motion, he slammed his fist into the throne. The throne, a symbol of unbroken power and tradition, crumbled under the werewolf king's wrath. Pieces of obsidian flew in all directions, and a cloud of dust rose from the destruction. His roar still echoed in the room, filled with a mixture of fury, sorrow, and a bone-deep sense of loss. His own guards and advisors cowered in the corners, not daring to approach or ask him what happened. His reaction was the most violent of the inner circle leaders as Queen Alfreda, Queen Allura, and Fairy Matriarch were left sitting in their thrones, stunned, confused, and just utterly lost. The announcement was floating in front of them and for the past 10 seconds, none of them showed any other reaction. With a shaky finger, Queen Allura finally reached out to the hologram and pushed it away. Then, she sent a message to her master, Lady Sphinx, asking her if this was true. When Lady Sphinx ignored her message, she felt her heart crush on itself. Little Junior, even as a queen, as an empress of an entire witch empire, she had never shed a single tear on anything, until this degree. Very moment. Meanwhile, Queen Alfreda reached out to Lady Yggdrasil for confirmation and she found out that the entire Primogenitors Council was trying their best to reach out to Felix's masters but to no avail. This made her heart sink to the bottom of her stomach, realizing that the news must be true. While her relationship with Felix was fixed in the end, she still cared more about the news' effect on her little sister, Selfie. I have to stop her from finding out. Otherwise, she might actually commit suicide. Queen Alfreda knew that her sister would go to this extreme as the elves' obsession with their loved ones couldn't be controlled. She actually witnessed many elves commit suicide the day after their spouse was buried. Alas, if only it was that simple to hide such a massive piece of news. The moment the inner circle leaders gathered up for an emergency meeting and saw that Felix hadn't attended, the last shred of disbelief was snatched from them, leaving the majority with hardened expressions. The only one unaffected emotionally by the news was Empress Emily. She presided over this emergency meeting. It is with the heaviest of hearts that I share this news. Our Grand Supreme, Felix Maxwell, has passed away. Her words hung in the air like an unwelcome spectre, the weight of their meaning descending upon the room with crushing gravity. The chamber fell into deafening silence. Leaders who had faced countless battles, who had seen the rise and fall of empires, were rendered as silent as mice. Emotions surged like a violent storm, shock rippled through the room, its cold fingers squeezing their hearts. Faces that were etched with the lines of ancient knowledge and experience stared back at Empress Emily. How did it happen? Fisherman Queen Everly asked. No one knows, I just can't fathom anyone is capable of killing him. He seemed untouchable. It must be the Darkins, he has just killed their partner. So far, this is all we got until we receive some information from his closed ones. Sigh, he went so soon, we were so close to universal domination under his leadership. Mournful eyes glistened, and the reality of the loss sunk in. Heads bowed, shoulders slumped, the room filled with the shared pain of losing their Grand Supreme. Through the shock and sadness, one thing was clear, they had not only lost a leader but a beacon of hope, an embodiment of strength, and the universe seemed a little darker for it. When we'll announce it to the citizens? We definitely can't do it now, the demon princes will regain their confidence and fight us back if they knew about it. That's true, our conquest will take a massive hit. The 6 demons decided to retreat into the shadows only because of Felix since he was the only one capable of erasing them from existence. While the 7 demons' realm was too weak to hold up against the Alliance's troops, the demon princes would make sure that they pay a heavy price to win this war. This situation made almost everyone even more upset and angered with the Darkins for taking down their leader and protector. As much as they hated Felix before, the moment he became a deity, none of them wanted anything bad to happen to him since he could have given them a voice against the Primogenitors. While the inner circle leaders were cursing Saurus and Wendigo, both of them were seen staring at each other with dumbfounded looks. That brat is dead. Don't play dumb with us. We know that it has to be related to you, otherwise, who can kill that little monster? Kumiho pressured with an irritated tone, not liking his attitude on the matter. When Felix's masters ignored the Primogenitors, most of them reached out to the Darkins to learn what happened. It was quite simple as the Darkins were still using the UVR with their other wisps of consciousness. This is the first time I am hearing about this crap. How can that brat just drop dead? Is this one of the council's ploys to get back at us? Saurus cursed, not trusting them in the slightest. Do you think we are that bored? Just fess up already and tell us how did you kill that cockroach? I am just curious about the method used. Kumiho stressed. Is she being for real? Wendigo's heart skipped a beat as he could sense that Kumiho wasn't messing around with them. The fact that other Primogenitors had reached out for the same reason as well made it even harder to disbelieve them. He really is dead. When Kumiho heard his grave question, she couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in surprise. You really do not know? Interesting, this is getting too interesting. Bye, losers. Kumiho hung up on them with a curse, but none of them seemed to care as their minds were occupied with the shocking news. What kind of bullsh** tea are they concocting? My other half cannot die and disappear like this. Lucifer uttered coldly, he just can't. We know just as much as you. Wendigo frowned, but, I am more prone to believe in my peers even if they hate our guts right now. This makes me wonder if that brat really died for real and had even my peers fooled as a ploy against us, or something bad did happen to him. It must be a ploy to bait us out and take us down when we least expect it. Wendigo assured with an icy tone, he's the only one capable of faking his death as he had Lord Loki's support who can control Queen AI. I am under the same impression. While the Darkins and Lucifer were hell-bent on disbelieving the news, they had no idea that Felix was currently wandering in the spirit realm without a single thought in his mind. 1383 A wandering spirit. Felix. Wake up, Asna called, her voice echoing through the vacant corridors of his thoughts, a solitary melody playing on the silent stage of his mind. While Felix had lost his memories and consciousness, Asna wasn't affected as much by their death. Her memories could not be erased since it was one of the spirit's guardian's laws, and as the origin of laws, she was immune to all of them. Ever since their passing, she had been trying her best to wake up Felix as she could sense his presence, a faint flicker amidst the abyss, but it was as if he was a distant star, unreachable and forgetful of its own brilliance. She ventured deeper, traversing through the maze of forgotten memories, past echoes of laughter, warmth, and love, all now cold and fading away into nothingness. Felix, she whispered again, her voice like the softest breeze, trying to coax life back into the decaying remnants of his memories. She reached out, her ethereal hand drifting through the shimmering remnants of his past, dissipating like fog at her touch. Each fragment of memory was cold, lacking the vibrant life it once held, but she was relentless. But her pleas went unanswered. The void swallowed her words, extinguishing them as they echoed into nothingness. The only way for his memories to return is through the spirit's guardian. I have to meet him. Knowing that her attempts were futile, Asna moved on to her next plan. A deep breath filled her lungs and she closed her eyes, her chest rising and falling with the universe's rhythm. She folded her hands together in a gesture of prayer, and her spiritual energy began to coalesce, building, growing, reaching out to the farthest corners of her essence. Suddenly, her spirit was ablaze. The power she held deep within her soul came alive, pulsating with a strength that echoed through the expanse of the void. Her brilliance degree was increasing exponentially, setting her alight in the darkness. It was like a star being born in the deep recesses of space. The energy surged through her veins, setting every fiber of her being alight. The light around her grew brighter, the glow intensifying until it illuminated the entire void. It was so powerful it felt tangible, casting brilliant streaks across the abyss that seemed to turn the darkness itself into a canvas of ethereal beauty. The radiance poured out from her in waves, shifting from soft gold to the intense white of a supergiant star. Her power seemed to vibrate through the universe itself, casting everything into a bright silhouette. Each pulse sent ripples through the cosmos, bending the fabric of reality to its will. The nearby spirits were all pushed away and overshadowed by the intense light, making them almost invisible. And in that moment, Asna was not just a star, she was the star. Please let this work. Her immense brilliance hadn't gone unnoticed. In this dreadful blue hue void, no one else shimmered as intense as she. This caused all the nearby Karens to get attracted to the emerging light, making them seem like moths flying in the direction of a hot lamp. As Asna continued to illuminate the void, casting the darkest corners of the cosmos with the brilliance of her energy, she began to see a movement in the distance. At first, they were mere specks of black against the vibrant canvas of the universe, but soon their shapes started taking form. They were the Karens, the ferrymen of the spirit realm, resplendent in their otherworldly robes. They maneuvered their spectral boats with ease only born from an eternity of traversing the cosmos. Their figures, cloaked in shadows and mystery, were in stark contrast to Asna's bright brilliance, yet held a certain allure of their own. Their boats, crafted from the stardust and the echoes of the cosmos, glided effortlessly through the vast expanse of the void. Each boat was a work of art, inlaid with intricate designs of galaxies and constellations, its sails woven from strands of nebulae, reflecting the faint glow of the stars. It worked. Asna sighed in reprieve as she lowered the intensity of her light, knowing that if she continued pushing herself, she would end up going into slumber to recoup the lost spiritual energy. Even though her light dimmed down, it didn't matter to those Karens as she was still the brightest spirit in the area, making her the most wanted. After the Karens had arrived and surrounded Asna/Felix from all sides, none of the ghostly ferrymen made a move to pick them up. Instead, they entered a telepathic discussion with each other, using the language of the dead. I have never seen such brilliance in life before. Zero-Ur Master has told us if we ever see something like this, we have to report to him immediately. A Karen with a spectral goat's head and the eerie grace of hidden spider legs disclosed with the earnest tone. I think you should take a look at it. This spirit is really too unique. How can two souls be merged into one, yet still each maintains their own colors and brilliance, making them get judged individually by the Master's laws? Another one added with an intrigued tone. Just as the other Karens wanted to join the conversation, Asna sent a telepathic message to all of them. I request a meeting with the spirit's guardian, Hades. It can talk. Oh ho, does this spirit really belongs to a Unigen? It must be, only Unigens can avoid our Lord's laws. The Karens were left dazed as none of them had seen the spirit of a Unigen in their entire long and arduous lives. Still, none of them listened to her request as they're operating on a set of iron rules, and in this case, they had to report back to their master. Just as one of them was going to do this, all of them received a ringing heavenly order straight in their minds. Bring her. Without a single word uttered, one of the Karens picked up Asna/Felix's spirit and placed it inside a small container. Their humanoid spirit was turned into a small multicolored flame, flickering once in a while. The container was placed above a long shelf amidst thousands of other shelves. All of them carried millions of the same containers. Listening to the order, the Karen cancelled any plans he had on collecting more spirits and took off in the direction of the heavenly plane, disappearing into the cosmos in the blink of an eye. A dead Unigen, what in Master's name is happening in the living realm? The goat-like Karen wondered as he gazed at the unique flickering flame of Felix and Asna, having a strong feeling that they're inviting trouble into their own world. Alas, such thoughts had no place in his mind as he could only listen to the orders and bring them back to his master. Meanwhile, in the living world. More than a year had gone since Felix's death as the time difference between the spirit realm and the matter universe was not fixed. Sometimes, the spirit realm moved faster and sometimes it moved slower. In this case, a mere few minutes in the spirit realm were turned into an entire year in the outside. All test novel on novelben/.cm. The Skallians' leaders did as they planned and focused wholly on conquering the 7 demon realms as fast as possible. Since the demon princes had no clue about Felix's situation, all of them went into hiding and give up on their demon realms. This made it a walk in the park for the Alliance's troops to streak roll all the populated planets and reverse as many demons as possible. In less than a year, the 7 demon realms were successfully conquered and named as the Twilight Terra. The moment the Skallians' troops finished their conquest and retracted most of their troops back to their positions, the news of Felix's death was leaked somehow and it had sent crushing waves across the entire network. More than 90% of the citizens disbelieved the news and made fun of the rumor spreader, while the last 10% either wanted their Grand Supreme to be dead or were just eager to witness some drama unfolding. Whatever it was, the network was buzzing with this tumor and everyone were waiting patiently for the Alliance's leaders to come in public and denounce the rumors. However, nothing like this happened and the Skallians kept ignoring the public outrage. Their silence on the matter made most citizens believe that their leaders simply had no time to waste on such nonsense, while the rest began to have doubts about the rumor's falsehood. While the citizens had no access to more detailed information, the same did not apply to Noah, Olivia, Selphie, Boredom, and the rest of Felix's loved ones. The moment they heard the news, they reached out to Felix and when he did not answer, they assumed that he was busy training. Still, they did not drop the subject and checked with Lady Sphinx and Fenrir. He's dead, he was smitten from above. Unfortunately, neither Lady Sphinx nor Fenrir sugar-coated the news, leaving them frozen in their places the instant they received their confirmation. 1384 Can't move on. A few minutes later after receiving the news, the dim light of the evening sun spilled into the tavern, casting long, morose shadows that echoed the news that had arrived moments ago. Noah, Boredom, Selphie, and Olivia sat at a corner table, a half-empty bottle of mead, untouched, standing sentinel in the middle of the rough wooden surface. A hush fell over the group, their faces mirroring the stark shock and disbelief that clung to them. The usually boisterous Boredom, known for his hearty laughter and cheerful disposition, sat in stunned silence, his jovial eyes dimmed. Selphie's usually radiant eyes, full of kindness and gentleness, were watery, a stray tear carving a path down her cheek. She was frozen, her gaze locked onto the dancing flames of the hearth, as if hoping that this was a cruel joke and Felix would walk through the door at any moment, his signature smirk in place. She took the news the hardest as Felix had already stolen her heart and refused to give it back. Now, he was gone for good and took it with him, making her incapable of accepting the cruel reality before her. Meanwhile, Noah's usual expressionless and cold face was ashen. His forehead was creased, lines of disbelief and grief etched deep. He ran a hand through his hair, pulling at the roots in a futile attempt to comprehend the reality that Felix, their Felix, was no more. Finally, there was Olivia. Unlike Selphie, she didn't even bother to hold her tears as she kept sobbing on the table while covering her face, an unbefitting image of her nature goddess title. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The room was filled with a heavy, suffocating silence mixed in with Olivia's suppressed sniffles. The noise of the bartender dims into a distant murmur, the shock was too fresh, the grief too raw. Smitten to death by an unknown enemy. At last, Boredom muttered. Am I the only one finding this too hard to believe? In Boredom's eyes, Lady Sphinx and Fenrir lied to them to keep them away from seeking death and avenging Felix. He firmly believed that his boss's death had something to do with the Darkans. Master doesn't lie. Noah disclosed coldly, and Felix will never get himself killed against those cowards. Noah would be lying if he said that he wasn't disappointed in his inability to join the faction's war and assist his master in taking down the Darkans. But, he knew that he was still too weak and he would be nothing but a mere burden. Even when Felix had died, he was certain that the Darkans had nothing to do with this. What does it matter who killed him? Felix is dead. Selphie muttered under her breath, her face was as pale as a fresh sheet of paper. She seemed like she had lost at least a century of her lifespan just by saying those cursed words. Without waiting for anyone to answer, Selphie broke into light particles and disappeared. Olivia and the others had no clue where she left and honestly, none of them were in the mood to care about her or anyone at this moment. Did you have to be so straightforward and not even tell them that you have a plan to revive him? Thor said. Whether we revive him or not, it's best to tell them the truth and stop at that, Fenrir replied calmly. He is right, Hormungandr supported. Now, leave the children to mourn in peace, and let's focus on the situation at hand. Lady Sphinx looked at Elder Kraken and asked, any news yet? Elder Kraken shook his head, still nothing. In the past year, Lady Sphinx had gone all out to revive all the lost tenants and place them inside her own consciousness space this time. Even Lord Shiva was revived and Lord Chaos decided to join in again. In the case of Lord Shiva, his existence was much more difficult to revive since Lady Sphinx had to ask for King Mahit for his people's bloodline again. Since Felix hadn't delivered as promised before, even as a primogenitor, she found it hard to convince him. I think you should take a look at it. Fortunately, King Mahit ended up giving up his bloodline after hearing that his meeting with his ancestor would be ensured by her 100% if took the deal. Felix might not have been able to convince Lord Shiva to meet his descendants, but the same did not apply to Lady Sphinx. As the one bringing him back, she was in control of his life and Lord Shiva knew that if he wanted to stay in the party and see how things develop, he had to listen to her request. On another hand, Lord Chaos volunteered to join the team due to Nemo's existence. Felix might have died and Nemo was left absolutely devastated ever since, but he still remained around Lady Sphinx. In addition, the Sundisk earring was also under Lady Sphinx's care and Nemo's alter ego had yet to be freed or even knew about Felix's death. With the group regrouped, everyone was focused on the revival mission even when they knew that it was going to be a long shot as the Spirit's Guardian made it almost impossible for spirits to return back to the living realm after stepping foot in the heavenly plane. We are counting on you. Thor and the others gave Elder Kraken an earnest look, knowing that he was the only ally they had on the other side and they had already created a plan to help out Felix. Your child will be more than taken care of under my watch, do not worry, Elder Kraken assured. The moon hung heavy in the dark velvet sky, its ethereal glow bathing the world in a somber silver hue, Selphie sat at the foot of Mother Tree, its ancient bark rough against her back as she stared blankly into the dark abyss of the night. Her heart pounded a mournful rhythm in her chest, a symphony of grief that echoed the hollow emptiness within her. In her mind, she replayed the last conversation she had had with Felix. His vibrant laughter echoed in her ears, the glint in his eyes as he told one of his ridiculous stories flashing before her. And now, all that remained of him were those memories, fading echoes of a life taken too soon. Even though Felix always told her that nothing was going to happen between them as he was in love with Isna, she was still willing to remain by his side and watch him from a distance. But now? Even that small happiness was taken away from her. Her thoughts swirled like a tempest, dark and tumultuous. The idea of continuing without Felix seemed unbearable, a torment she was not sure she had the strength to endure. Do I go for it? He told me about the spirit realm and the heavenly plane, who knows, fate might bring us together there. The possibility of joining him, to escape the insufferable grief that threatened to shatter her, flickered dangerously in her mind. But a part of her, the rational part buried deep beneath her grief, knew that this was not the answer. That this was not what Felix would have wanted for her. He would have wanted her to live, to fight, to continue the journey they had started together. But the call of the other side, of being reunited with Felix, felt like a siren's song, impossible to ignore. Little one, what's gone is gone, Lady Yggdrasil uttered softly, appearing right behind her daughter. She placed her hand on her head and patted her in a caring manner. As Selphie was feeling her mother's touch, tears trickled down her cheeks, her breath coming in ragged gasps. What do I do then, Mom? Sob, what do I do? Can't you move on? He has always seen you as nothing but his close friend, I believe it's time for you to share your love with someone who will love you back. I do not desire that, I want him, now and always, here or there, I want him, Selphie replied, her voice shaky but firm at the same time, making Lady Yggdrasil sigh in frustration. She knew that her daughter was far gone and if she wanted to help her move on, then she might as well give her a feasible method. I won't allow you to end your life so soon over nothing, but since you won't be in your right state either way, might as well help you save him, Lady Yggdrasil disclosed with earnest tone. Save him, Selphie's eyes widened in disbelief. Read the latest stories and novelbin.com. It's not a 100% method, but it is something feasible, Lady Yggdrasil informed. I always held the belief that the ultimate ability of time element is allowing the user to travel through timelines. So, if you're hell-bent on your obsession, just create one and use it to bring another Felix from a different dimension to here. 1385 Spirits Guardian Hades. I don't care if it's the same Felix, I don't want one from a different timeline. Selphie rejected the proposal without an ounce of hesitation. In her eyes, bringing Felix from another dimension would be considered cheating her own emotions as she had them for this one, not another variation. Plus, she would be taking Felix from her own variation as well and God knows what she would do to bring him back. Then, find out a way to create a reversing time spell capable of bringing back even spirits. Lady Yggdrasil said with a stern tone, I don't care what you do, but you aren't allowed to harm yourself. With that being said, Lady Yggdrasil took off. Honestly, Selphie couldn't harm herself even if she wanted as Lady Yggdrasil's wisp of consciousness was watching from within her. Reversing time to bring back spirits. Even the time primogenitors can't do it, how can I achieve that? Selphie hugged her knees and sulked in silence, having no idea what to do next with her life, but one thing was certain, she wasn't going to give up on finding ways to bring Felix back. In the spirit realm, the goat-like Karen had guided his boat back to the heavenly plane up to date. OVLS on O.V.L.Bin.cm. It looks much comfier than the living world, Asna thought to herself as she expanded her senses outside of the boat. Although she had seen the heavenly plane through Kraken's memories, it wasn't the same experience as seeing it with her own eyes. Her description fitted the heavenly plane's atmosphere quite well as appeared serene and had an otherworldly tableau of extraordinary beauty and grandeur. Stretching out in all directions, the landscape below was bathed in a gentle, ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the realm itself. The tranquility here was not just visual but permeated the air, settling over the plain like a comforting blanket of peace and calm. The sky, a pristine canvas of cerulean and gold, was studded with a constellation of spirits in various forms, illuminating the vast expanse with their radiant aura. The celestial beasts, majestic and ethereal, gracefully move among the clouds, their every movement emanating waves of mystical energies. Even the objects that floated within this aerial ballet were extraordinary, strange, and beautiful all at once. Shimmering orbs of light, the whispered remains of ancient celestial bodies, mystical platforms carrying age-old temples, and floating islands with verdant flora, all peacefully coexist in this transcendent landscape. Intermingling with this spectacle were streams of iridescent energies, the spiritual rivers that flowed seamlessly through the air, carrying with them the souls of the departed, who danced in them like spectral fish in a heavenly stream. The spectral boat continued on its journey toward the center of the heavenly plane. It seemed like everyone respected and feared the Karens as no one dared to block the boat's path. Even though the heavenly plane was immensely large and covered possibly more than thousands of times Earth's surface area, the boat reached the center in a few minutes at best. I can feel his existence. Asna's soul immediately shuddered the instant she entered the range of the ethereal palace. This palace was pulsating with a spiritual radiance that commanded attention. It stood as a testament to the realm's serene might and the profound wisdom of the spirits that governed here. The palace, a celestial dwelling of pure white marble, glowed with an ethereal luminescence. Towers, domes, and turrets reached into the ever-changing sky, echoing the stars' twinkling dance. The palace's size was immeasurable, not bound by ordinary dimensions, and instead expanded and contracted according to the will of its celestial inhabitants. The moment the Karen got close to the palace's gate, he stopped the boat and went to pick up Asna/Felix's soul, then, he got off and floated inside the magnificent shimmering unguarded gate. As he walked across the vast halls, the air was filled with a gentle hum, a celestial symphony, like a soothing hymn reverberating from the palace's very foundations, yet, Karen's heart was beating out of his chest in agitation and a bit of excitement. I can't believe I am entering the ethereal palace and about to see the elders and master. This Karen was a devoted worker to the spiritual government for eons and he had never got this close to the ethereal palace, even when his social status could be considered 100 times higher than golden spirits. This should speak volumes of how difficult it was to get in touch with the spirit's guardian, and if it was not for Asna's identity, Felix would have been nothing but another commoner spirit. I think you should take a look at it. Get in. Immediately after the Karen arrived at the heart of the palace, the door to the ethereal elders' assembly was pushed wide open for him. With his spider's legs shaking nervously, the Karen walked in with his head bowed to the limit. Before he could open his mouth, he found himself without the container and had his back already facing the assembly. Leave. Lust like a heavenly decree, the Karen continued his path outside of the assembly and returned to his boat. This entire experience took merely a few seconds and he didn't even see either his master or the elders. However, his heart was still beating out loud in stimulation like someone who had won the lottery. He, Akil will surely die again of envy when I tell him about this. He grinned widely as he took off into the sky, returning to his eternal duty. Meanwhile, inside the ethereal assembly, a bit of ruckus was risen. Brother Hades, it's been a while. Asna greeted with a faint chuckle as she emerged from the container as a humanoid spirit. She was speaking with the Eternal Kingdom language, a language only Unigens could decipher and understand. Little witch, I see you are still causing trouble everywhere you go. The spirit's guardian Hades replied, his voice as deep as the ocean yet seemingly as pleasing as a hummingbird, a unique voice indeed. He was perched regally upon his throne of spectral silver, commanding the attention with an air of quiet, indomitable authority. His figure, tall and spectral, emanated a unique blend of composure and foreboding, akin to an attractive yet deadly nocturnal predator. A mantle of ethereal, smoky mist clung to him, giving him a mysterious, otherworldly aura. His hair, a riotous cascade of ink-black strands, flowed freely over his shoulders, glimmering with a celestial sheen that hinted at the unimaginable power he possessed. His eyes, a pair of clear, shining orbs, were the color of a calm, moonlit lake, flickering with wisdom and understanding that only eternity could impart. They held a profound depth, as though they had watched over life, death, and everything in between, giving him an air of both world-weary experience and youthful curiosity. As he sat on his throne, Hades exuded an air of peacefulness, a stark contrast to his ominous name, yet, those who knew him understood that this was a calm born of the resolution, a silent pledge to guard the spirit realm against any disturbance, and therein lay his true might. How am I the one causing trouble? Asna said coldly, I got kicked out of the Eternal Kingdom and even sealed by those bastards. When I have gotten freed and found my soulmate, they came to mess with me again, and this time, they even killed my partner. You know full well what your existence means to them. Hades said. They will keep trying their very best to keep you from taking over your duties. I never cared about such a thing, and if I had a choice, I would have stripped myself from all of my powers. Asna sighed, at this moment, I really just desire to live a peaceful life with Felix, but they cannot even let me have that. We're Unigens, we aren't born to have peaceful lives. You sure do look peaceful in your mighty throne away from the woes of the living world, Asna stated with an annoyed tone. Hades merely showed a faint smile for a split second before his serene expression returned. This was his entire reaction to her comment, as he did not bother to explain himself or his position. I guess you wanted to meet me to revive you in your little mortal. Hades switched the subject, and this time he used the language of the dead, allowing everyone to understand them. Yet. No. Hades rejected her with an indifferent tone. The answer is no and will always be no. 1386. The end of the partnership. As Asna voiced her desire to revive herself and Felix, the ethereal elders exchanged uneasy glances before their expressions hardened. Elder Elysium was the first to respond. His tranquil moss-green eyes darkened, reflecting a sense of deep displeasure. Young one, tampering with the cycle of life and death is against our laws. It's not something we can condone even for a Unigen. His appearance mirrored the calm beauty of an untouched forest. His skin seemed to be made of the finest silver birch, and his eyes were a warm, inviting green, much like the moss that carpeted the ground. He was known for his empathy and open-mindedness, always ready to listen and understand the spirit's various perspectives. However, in this subject, he was unmovable as a mountain. Elder Sheol leaned forward, his deep obsidian eyes reflecting a labyrinth of thoughts. Our spirit realm has lasted for this long all because every single one of us respects the imposed laws and acts by them, even our master adheres to his own laws. This elder's features were dark and somewhat inscrutable, his eyes deep wells of obsidian. There's a quiet intensity about him, his presence unsettling yet intriguing. He was one of the highest-ranked elders in the assembly, and his words were treated only below the spirit's guardian himself. If we were to entertain such a request, we risk setting a precedent that could unravel the order we've maintained ever since the creation of the universe. Each refusal felt like a cold gust of wind, chilling Asna's hopes to the bone, making her understand that even her Unigen status had no authority in front of the elders. The spirit's realm was considered its own unique universe compared to other realms linked to the matter universe, which meant no one had authority here besides Hades and his people. While revival is not an option, it's more than possible for your partner to get reincarnated in a new body, zero obviously, without his memories intact about either his previous life or the spirit realm. Elder Kraken interjected with an opposite view amidst the storm of rejection from his peers. His appearance was that of a humanoid glowing ethereal blue octopus, resembling his real appearance from the living world. His glowing golden humanoid appearance from the memories was no more, as he had worked his ass off to climb the governmental ladder and become the youngest ethereal elder. When he said that his status was quite high in the spirit realm, he wasn't bragging one bit, as he was above everyone else and below only the spirit's guardian. How will that work for me? You know that my memories are untouched, and I doubt there is a physical body capable of holding my soul. Asna replied with an irritated tone. She had recognized Elder Kraken the instant she stepped inside the council, but she never acted weird about it. She knew that it would do her and Felix more harm if she exposed her relationship with Elder Kraken. That's why he didn't mention you. Hades disclosed in a calm manner. You aren't going anywhere. What do you mean? Asna narrowed her eaves. Hades switched back to the Unigen's language and said, the instant you stepped inside my realm, I have become forced to separate your souls. When that happens, the moment you return to the living world, they will most likely seal you yet again. Is that what you want, Asna? He asked. Asna went silent. She always knew that splitting her soul with Felix would mean bringing trouble to them from those beings. However, the more time she spent with Felix and nothing happened to them, the more she forgot about their eternal judgment sword until she was left to believe that maybe, just maybe, it would be all right. Alas. Felix getting smitten to death broke her fantasy apart and made her realize that their eyes were always on them. This meant if she dared to return to the living world as a separate soul and the universe would start restoring her powers, those beings would put her in the same seal. Are you really forced to separate our souls? Can't you do me a favor, and reincarnate both of us in a suitable body? Asuna requested. You know I can't do that. Hades shook his head, the mortal has to enter the system just like any other spirit, you can't be merged with him in the process, and you know why. Asuna remained quiet again. She understood that the entire system was geared for each soul individually to begin a fresh new life with fresh memories. If she shared the same soul as Felix, not a single elder was going to approve of it, this meant Felix would never have the chance of being reincarnated as it was tied heavily with the system. If you truly care for this mortal, leave him to live his new life in peace and away from our celestial problems, no one deserves to get involved in them. Hades advised. Felix, what do I do? At this moment, Asuna wished for nothing but to hear Felix's voice _las. The void was as silent as ever. I think you should take a look at it. In this silence, Asuna started to have some different thoughts that Felix would have made get absolutely livid to the core for having them. He has done enough for me, he has done more than enough for me, I cannot be selfish and ruin more of his life, I can't. Asuna would have never had such thoughts before if it wasn't for Felix getting smitten to death by her opposers. He had worked his entire life to reach his goals and when he finally achieved most of them and became considered at the top of the universe, his life came to an abrupt end because of her. The worst part? She knew that those organisms merely fired a warning shot as they could have erased his soul entirely. If he has no memories of me and got revived or reincarnated, they won't come after him again. Asuna showed a desolate faint smile as memories of her time with Felix played akin to a movie before her. She recalled their first peculiar encounter, where she ended with more than just half of his soul. The memory of their first shared laughter filled her with warmth. The image of him, with his sparkling eyes full of mischief and his boyish grin, was forever engraved in her mind. Their shared dreams, whispered into the night, their hopes for the future, the promise of forever, all these memories painted a well-off tapestry of love, joy, and companionship. As she remembered their last kiss, she could almost taste him, feel his lips against hers, the heat of his touch. She remembered the light in his eyes when he looked at her, the gentleness in his touch, the comfort in his embrace. The memory of his laugh, full of warmth and mirth, filled the quiet assembly, only to fade away, leaving behind an echoing silence. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she let them fall, because she was in a spirit form, those tears merged with her skin and made it seem like she wasn't crying. But in reality, they traced a wet path down her cheeks, each droplet a testament to the love she held for him. Yet, beneath this river of grief, there was also determination, a resolve forged from the depths of her pain. Finally, her gaze fell upon Hades. Asuna made the heart-wrenching decision. For his protection, for his safety, she would have to let him go. She would split their souls, the price of her love being a solitude she was willing to pay. LL new STRIs at N0VE/LBI/.cm. Closing her eyes, Asuna whispered, I love you, Felix, now and always. Be free, be safe. And with that, she gave a head nod at Hades and he acknowledged her decision by setting the irreversible process into motion. With a mere snap of a finger, her last connection to Felix was severed, their souls splitting apart before everyone. It seemed too easy, too effortless, and too anticlimactic. One of the most difficult challenges and goals in Felix's life was completed just like that. One could say that their partnership had come to a conclusion with both parties living up to their end of the bargain. Asuna had helped Felix reach the pinnacle of the universe and he kept his word and split their souls apart. The circumstances weren't perfect as Felix ended up dying and Asuna incapable of leaving the spirit realm, but it is what it is. Please take care of him at least. Asuna beseeched, her eyes were about to overflow again with tears. My apologies, but I can't show bias to any spirit. Guardian Hades shook his head, he will enter the system and be treated based on his color and achievements just like everyone else. The moment he uttered so, Hades waved his hand and Felix's spirit was sent on his merry way, floating into the distance akin to an automatic robot, having no idea that he was leaving behind him the love of his life once and for all. As Asuna watched Felix's soul disappear into the ether, she had one regret that was burning her soul down. If only I was not stubborn and wanted my first time to be perfect, we could have connected our love at least once, sob, sob. Asuna covered her eyes as she could not hear to see her man leave her alone with her memories in a heart full of love for someone she could no longer call her own. I have a bad feeling about this. Elder Kraken sighed in distress, having a strong feeling that this development was not going to end well for either side. Alas, at this moment, he could only be a spectator as his biased involvement would lead him expelled from the assembly. 1387 Memories Reformation. Some time later. The meeting was adjourned after Asuna was taken away by Hades. While other spirits had to enter the system, Asuna was a special case as her memories couldn't be erased, which meant this entire new fresh start scheme wasn't going to work on her. After Asuna and Hades took their leave, Elder Kraken swiftly excused himself and caught up with Felix's spirit, then, he guided him away from the Memories Reformation Center and took him to the outskirts of the city. Looming at the city's edge, an abandoned mansion stood as a solitary monument to decay, its weathered facade and overgrown grounds a haunting echo of its long-forgotten grandeur. This was one of Elder Kraken's properties and he had abandoned it when he had gotten something better. No one cared about such a thing as those abandoned mansions get erased automatically if another party had taken ownership of the territory. In this case, Elder Kraken was the sole owner of more than 100,000 square kilometers across the entire heavenly plane. Get an Elder Kraken guided Felix's soul inside the mansion going through the walls akin to ghosts. Then, he took him to the living room. The living room's condition was horrendous, but there was one of the same Memories Reformation machines placed in the center of it. Visit Nfelben.cm for you ovals. Elder Kraken made Felix sit on the metallic chair and placed the helmet on him. Can you hear me? Elder Kraken asked, waving his hand in front of Felix's face. Still no response, this isn't supposed to happen. Elder Kraken muttered. He knew that even though Felix's memories were erased, he shouldn't have lost the capability to reason and speak. All arriving spirits on the heavenly plane were conscious of their surroundings. Yet, Felix resembled a soulless robot. He knew that it must have something to do with Isna's soul being merged with him before. I guess I am left with no choice now. Elder Kraken started tinkering with the holographic buttons for a few moments and then pulled a long cable and attached it to the back of his head. Then, pressed the start button. Even though this was considered a spiritual realm, it was still following most of the laws of realism due to the spirit's guardian wanting to make it resemble the living world. The machine hummed loudly in the center, the elder's eyes were shut tight, beads of perspiration trickling down his furrowed brow as he channeled the fragmented pieces of Felix's memory from his own mind, passing them through the humming contraption. Bright lights danced over the machine's smooth surface, sequences of glyphs and numbers rapidly processing the extracted data. The process was intense, the living room filled with the raw sounds of technology whirring and echoing pulse of the connection between the two entities. Strapped into a reclining chair, Felix's body was rigid, his non-existent eyes locked in a distant stare as he was bombarded with fragments of his past, his pupils rapidly shifted, mirroring the whirlwind of memories that assaulted his consciousness. Childhood laughter, the pain of loss, the joy of success, the burn of failure, and the adrenaline of battle, all flowed back into him. The light, the dark, the mundane, the extraordinary, emotions and experiences he'd long forgotten, were forced back into the forefront of his mind, forging him anew. As the process neared completion, a subtle transformation overcame Felix. His once vibrant and expressive eyes grew cold, his features set into an unreadable mask. The lines of his face hardened, the lively spark that once lit his gaze snuffed out, replaced by an icy, calculating gleam. A silence fell upon the room as the machine powered down, its purpose fulfilled. With a new body and a similar appearance to his version in the living world, Felix slowly rose from the chair, his movements smooth and precise. He stood taller, more imposing, the once passionate and vivacious young man was gone. In his place, a strategic, emotionless, and ruthless individual took hold. Felix. Elder Kraken called, his voice was firm but had a tint of distress. He had noticed the change in Felix's demeanor as he seemed more like a predator, molded by the past. He always knew that there would be some changes to Felix's personality as the memories he pushed into him weren't complete 100%, but he didn't think that he would emerge like this. Felix made a noise of acknowledgement as he gazed at his glowing red fists. Although his body became physical and resembled his old self, his skin was still shimmering with intense red light, which was an indicator of his spirit's ranking. Red, not gold, even with all of my achievements, I haven't touched the gold color, interesting. While it seemed bizarre for Felix not to be rewarded with gold color, it really wasn't. Gold color was the peak of a spirit rank and there was no way up besides getting higher in the spirit realm government. I think you should take a look at it. Elder Kraken was gold because he lived for billions of years and his achievements didn't affect him individually, but many others across the entire universe. In addition, he was responsible for the creation of millions of marine races, which was in the eyes of the universe, the greatest achievement one could obtain. Zero on the other hand, Felix's achievements were godly all right, but most of them affected him on a personal level, which did not carry the same value. If he stayed alive and actually helped the human race develop a new cultivation system, it would have been a different story entirely. Still, Felix was not complaining as he knew that colors could be improved or lowered through his own efforts in the heavenly plane. What was your color, Asna? Felix called in his mind calmly. No response. Asna. Felix frowned. Still, no response. Felix closed his eyes and entered his new consciousness space. When he opened his eyes and saw that not a single soul existed in his lake, he did not know how to react. Asna. Felix stood in the expansive void of his consciousness space, its monotonous nothingness reflecting his current state of mind. He searched the emptiness, a sense of anticipation echoing in the silence around him. Usually, in this very spot, he'd find Asna's radiant soul, an unmissable beacon of light in this internal cosmos, but now, there was nothing. Just an empty void, mirroring his hollow heart. He understood that she should have been there, a constant presence, a shared heartbeat in his existence. But his senses failed to acknowledge her absence, the rawness of loss eluded him. There was an understanding, a knowledge that he should feel her absence like a gaping wound. Yet, there was only silence, an eerie emptiness. He attempted to dredge up feelings of sadness, of longing, of heartbreak, but his heart remained still, almost mechanical. His mind understood the concept of these feelings, the crippling despair that should have accompanied such a loss. What happened to me and where is my Asna? Felix returned to the outside world and gazed at Elder Kraken with a look filled with untold amounts of pain and sadness, but his expression was as hardened as ever. My apologies, little one, but I have no control over the end result of your personality when one chooses a manual's memories reformation. Elder Kraken sighed, I have fed you with most of the important memories that define you, but I did not expect the results to be like this. When Felix heard this, he revised those memories and realized that more than 99% of them were about conflicts, fights, wars, deaths, strategies, unfair treatment, pain, a lot of pain. There were some lovely memories of him with his friends, family, and Asna, but they amounted to barely 1%. When the machine processed those memories and extracted the perfect personality of them, this was the final result. A wounded person who was born from pain and died of pain with a life of constant struggles and conflicts, giving him the ultimate ruthless and emotionless personality. As for Asna, all I can tell you now is that she is in a safe place and you shouldn't be worried about her. Elder Kraken shared, your souls have been separated by the spirit's guardian and she is under his care now. When Felix heard this, he wanted to feel relieved, but at the same time, he could not muster an ounce of such emotion. In the end, he took a deep breath with his eyes closed shut and opened them again when his emotions were back to normal. It's good that our souls have been separated at last and she isn't in danger, Felix said, his expression as indifferent as ever, making it seem like he did not mean either of them. She will be more in danger if she returned to the living world. Elder Kraken disclosed, you know that already. Felix nodded in silence. Now that Felix had become as rational as a robot, he understood that Asna was in her safe haven as those organisms made it clear that their eyes were on them. As much as it pissed off Felix to die in that manner, he was left awakened. Awakened to the truth that he was nowhere close to those beings' strength, and if he dared return to the living world either alone or with Isna, none of them would even see the doors of the spirit realm again. But still, this did not mean that Felix had no plans of returning to the living world. Elder, is there any possibility of meeting Isna or the spirit's guardian? Felix inquired with a stoic expression. Unfortunately, even as an ethereal elder, I have no authority to set up a meeting between a spirit and the master. Elder Kraken shook his head. As for Isna, I suggest you do not focus on such useless meetings and focus on your own situation. Your red color might be only below golden color, but you are still considered eligible to become a servant for a golden spirit. Elder Kraken warned. Create new paste/syntax languages/archive/faq/tools/night mode/api/scraping api/news/pro privacy statement/cookies policy/terms of service/security disclosure/nga/report abuse/contact. Felix nodded in understanding. Felix was already given all the information needed to understand how the heavenly plane system operate, what needed to be done to avoid getting punished, and also how was government structured. This made him discern that even though his color ranking was above, dark, indigo, blue, green, yellow, and orange, he was still under the authority of golden spirits and all governmental personnel. You are eligible to have 5 servants under you, but you will be a servant of a gold ranker spirit. I will try my best to recommend you get put under a reasonable golden spirit who wouldn't abuse you. Elder Kraken comforted. No. Felix rejected his goodwill. Put me under a golden spirit who will help me obtain the highest amount of lumus to push my grade into the gold color and become eligible for a governmental position. In the heavenly plane, there was only one currency and it was called lumus. This currency was the sole most important object in the entire spirit realm as it could be used for almost everything. It was used as a currency to buy territories, houses, vehicles, farms, beasts, unique spiritual objects, favors, set up meetings, buy new servants, and most importantly, lumus was the only possible method to increase one's own color grade. When enough was gathered, they could be traded for a color change, which in turn, reward the person with the benefits and privileges of being in that color rank. For example, Felix had an intense red color, which implied that he was extremely close to becoming a golden spirit. Still, it would take him quite an unfathomable quantity of lumus to make the push. When one considered that lumus was being used on a daily basis for everything else, it was extremely difficult to save enough to focus on one's grade. Fortunately, there was no such thing as the threat of death from hunger or such, which signified that people could enhance their ranks if they focused on a minimalistic way of living. Still, obtaining lumus was no easy task due to the best rewarding jobs already being taken for eons now and no one was stupid enough to let go of them. In the case of Elder Kraken, his first job was as a salaryman in a high-profile company responsible for providing the best entertainment for high-ranked spirits. This job clearly dealt with large quantities of lumus, which was extremely helpful to anyone. If it wasn't for his golden rank and high privileges, he wouldn't have been offered such a position. As you know, many spirits get thrown out of the heavenly plane on a daily basis after falling below the necessary requirement to stay here. But, there were, even more, coming in. Elder Kraken shook his head. Even if I used my authority as an elder, I wouldn't be able to help you remove someone from his position and give it to you. With the current competition on such high-paying positions, it would be near impossible to do more than recommend you to take the tests just like everyone else. Why don't you chill under an undriven golden spirit until a position gets freed and I will swiftly claim it for you. Elder Kraken planned earlier to put Felix under someone without abusive tendencies, which was quite simple since most of the golden spirits with such non-driven personalities, focused more on their enjoyment and relaxation. Not everyone was seeking to climb to the top or compete with other spirits. Most spirits simply wanted to live their second lives in peace and chase after their dreams or passions regardless of how much lumus they gained from them. There were many companies created for the sake of tending to those loafer spirits. But Felix had no interest in this life even if it was temporary. You know I can't hold still for even a second. Felix stated calmly, if I want to be reincarnated, I have to reach a governmental status, and to achieve this, I have to be gold color first. In the heavenly plane, everyone knew that it was possible to be reincarnated back into the living world as it was common knowledge given to everyone. However, not everyone cared about such an opportunity as the dream of returning to the living world seemed useless and somewhat undesirable. After all, everyone had their memories erased from their previous lives, which made them have no clue what they left behind them or what kind of experience it was. To make matters worse, getting reincarnated meant losing their current memories and starting afresh, which was extremely random. No one was retarded enough to work their absolute butts off to reach a governmental position, just to give up on it and reincarnate into a random baby. But Felix's situation was different. I think you should take a look at it. You showed me that my masters have already frozen my body in time and they are keeping it ready for my return, with the time difference being always so random between the two realms, I can't be fooling around. Felix stated. Felix had no clue if the time would be in his favor or against him. 1 minute, it could be 1 day to 1,000 days, and another minute, it could become the opposite. Whatever it was, he didn't want to keep his masters waiting for millions of years if not more while he was chilling in the spirit realm. As you wish, I will see what I can do. Elder Kraken assured. This new personality has truly affected him greatly. If it was the old Felix, he would have been unsettled until he checks on Asna with his own eyes. Elder Kraken didn't know if this was a good thing or not, but at this moment, he was more in favor of Felix's new personality as he knew that to compete in the spirit realm, one had to be ruthless and calculative. Death was not on the table around here, but a fate much worse, as anyone could get thrown back to the empty spirit realm to wander for eternity without a single chance of ever stepping foot in the heavenly plane. So, unless one had his stay secured 100%, no one had the option to laze around and disobey the rules. Let's go, I have prepared your new home. Elder Kraken took Felix back to the capital city. Astralis. Visit N. CM for you ovals. It was a breathtaking panorama where the fantastical and the futuristic coalesce into an awe-inspiring spectacle. Astoundingly high towers of iridescent crystal touched the clouds, shimmering with ethereal lights that pulsated rhythmically, emanating an otherworldly glow that illuminated the whole city. These celestial skyscrapers were not mere edifices of beauty but houses of higher learning, research facilities, and dwellings for elite spirits. Since Elder Kraken did not want to be seen with Felix, he used a disguise on himself and walked with him through the bustling boulevards of Astralis. This is the Spectral Bazaar. You can find anything you want here, even servants on display for sale or trade. Elder Kraken introduced as he went through with Felix inside the gates of a bustling market pulsing with spectral energy and vibrant life. Spirits of varying sizes and shades flowed about, their bodies shimmering in iridescent hues of blue, purple, and green, giving the marketplace a vibrant, surreal atmosphere. Stalls selling precious artifacts and mystical relics of untold power stood side by side with shops dealing in simpler necessities. Exotic gems radiating intense spiritual energy glisten in the light, while ancient scrolls scribed with the wisdom of the elders invite onlookers to delve into their secrets. Are those treasures actually capable of delivering those promises? Felix raised an eyebrow as he read the details of some treasures in those stalls. The details were too overpowered while the price did not give them justice. Of course, but what's the point? Elder Kraken explained, almost all treasures in the spirit realm are cheap dirt since there is no benefit to them here. Makes sense. Felix realized that increasing one's soul power was not as important as in the living world since everyone here worked for the sake of increasing their color grade. Still, they aren't completely useless. Elder Kraken added, there are many fighting tournaments that allow spirits to fight each other for the sake of entertainment. Having a strong soul improves telekinesis prowess and also the power of imagination, allowing the spirits to cast whatever elemental abilities they can come up with. I see. Felix removed his gaze from those treasures, but his interest hadn't died down. In his eyes, those treasures might not mean much to other spirits, but for him, they're too godly to pass over. After all, his main goal at the moment was to return to the living world and he was not planning to do this without making sure to empower himself as much as possible. Now, this is the good stuff. Elder Kraken stopped behind a crowd gathering around a platform where many spirit servants were put on display. Each spirit was encapsulated in a protective sphere of energy. None of those spirits seemed ashamed or depressed. In fact, they were waving at the prospective buyers, seemingly wanting to allure someone to purchase them and turn them into their servants. Felix wasn't surprised by this as servants weren't treated really as slaves in the heavenly plane, but more as loyal workers or subordinates. As workers, they also get paid for their services on a monthly basis and obviously, the currency was none other than Loomis. This implied that even if a spirit had the option to have multiple servants, no one would hire more than necessary unless they could afford to keep them. Since the easiest way to obtain a consistent supply of Loomis was to become a servant for a higher spirit, everyone was selling their own selves. Did anyone catch your eyes? Elder Kraken offered, I can buy you one and pay him for 1 year in advance until you can afford to pay him without needing to liquidate your own color. Much appreciated. Felix accepted the offer with open arms. He understood that the worst thing he could do now was to liquidate his own color to obtain Loomis due to the depreciation of its value. All spirits were capable of lowering their own color light intensity and transforming it into usable Loomis currency. However, this was considered an emergency solution that no one dared to go for it unless they were truly strapped for Loomis. This was because the value differed by at least 10 times. For example, if Felix was paid 1,000 Loomis for a small job and consumed them to increase his color's intensity, if he wanted to pull out the same 1,000 Loomis, he would lose 10 times worth of light intensity. The system operated like this so anyone who sought to increase their color grade, must go for it after being financially secured 100%. Discover new chapters at novelby.co. While spirits did not need food to live, they do need houses. The government made sure to tax the living **t out of them to give everyone a sense of crisis that their stay in the heavenly plane was not free of charge. In this sense, the heavenly plane was more or less the same as our despicable capitalistic world. I guess even in death, there is no escaping from capitalism. Felix commentated in his mind as he read the details of the first servant in front of him. She resembled a graceful wind spirit with the ethereal semblance of a dancing willow tree, making her seem gentle and kind. She specializes in soothing turbulent emotions and providing a calming aura. Her price is set at 500 Loomis a month, quite a bargain for her peaceful presence and empathetic abilities. Still, Felix passed her on. He had no use for her set of abilities as she was more fit for the spirits wanting to relax and enjoy their eternity. Suddenly, a breathtaking seductress leaned closer to Felix with an enticing smile laced with promises of forbidden pleasures, her eyes sparkling with unabashed interest. Then, she whispered with a voice as velvety as the night, her words caressing his senses like a soft, warm breeze. Master, won't you consider me as your servant? I promise you, there's much more to me than what meets the eye. Her intoxicating fragrance filled his senses, a heady blend of wildflowers and exotic spices, making it harder for anyone to resist her charm. Alas, Felix's new personality was void of such intimate emotions as he merely glanced at her monthly payment and shook his head. 1,000 Loomis a month for sex? Not interested. Then, he walked away with Elder Kraken and continued browsing for potential servant candidates. Your loss, handsome. The beautiful seductress merely smiled charmingly as she waved her fingers at Felix before attempting to trap another potential master. In the heavenly plane, there weren't much of negative emotions implanted inside the spirits when they first step inside of it. I think you should take a look at it. So, no one really would be humiliated to get rejected and cause a scene or such nonsense. How about this one? Elder Kraken asked, his eyes focused on a figure dressed in a traditional Japanese outfit. He was a humanoid lizard standing upright, his scales gleaming with a light yellow hue, like sun rays reflecting off of polished gold. His muscular body was covered in tightly fitted traditional garb known as a jinbei, a type of short-sleeved kimono often worn in summer. His attire, though simple, was immaculate, a crisp white top tied neatly with a vibrant blue sash around his robust waist, and matching loose trousers that reached just below his knees. His head was adorned with a wide-brimmed, woven straw hat that shaded his angular, reptilian features. Underneath, a pair of gleaming eyes flickered with a calm yet attentive gaze, betraying his keen intellect and observant nature. The long, muscular tail that extended behind him moved subtly with his every gesture, showcasing his exceptional balance and control. Despite his unconventional appearance, there was a quiet dignity about him that commanded respect. Yet, not many people were around his display platform. When Felix read his monthly fees, he understood why. 1,500 lumis a month. Felix raised an eyebrow, isn't it a bit too expensive for a light yellow servant? When it came to servants, do not bother yourself with their colors but by their reliability, obedience, and loyalty. Elder Kraken shared. In his case, his details are more fit with your situation as he will help you immensely in your tough journey. True. Felix nodded calmly. While his price was a bit too much for him, Felix understood that it was better to own one reliable servant than have 3 useless cheap ones. Since Elder Kraken was going to pay an entire year in advance, Felix did not have to worry too much about the payments for now. Introduce yourself. Felix ordered with a stoic expression as he stood under the samurai-like lizard. Sekiro Yashida. Sekiro gave a slight respectful head nod with his hands held together and then remained silent. He neither promoted himself nor begged to be picked like most other servants. 1,500 lumis a month isn't a bit expensive, do not you think? Felix said. I know my worth. Sekiro replied, his voice as steady as ever. Instead of grilling him for more answers, Felix merely stared into his eyes and Sekiro did not even blink in return. After staring at each other with similar stoic expressions, Felix finally turned to Elder Kraken and gave him a slight nod of approval. I knew that you will pick him. Elder Kraken chuckled as he brought out 3 illuminating golden crystals and 3 red crystals from his pockets. The moment they're brought out in the open, everyone's attention was attracted to them as they seemed to have been mesmerized. It was a normal reaction when considering that each golden crystal was valued at 5,000 lumis and 1 red crystal was valued at 1,000 lumis. Only the filthy well-off spirits traded with such high-graded crystals as the rest used green/yellow/orange crystals in bulks. Elder Kraken pushed the floating illuminating crystals to Sekiro and he put them straight away in his pocket. Then, he jumped down from the platform and bowed his head deeply in front of Felix. I am under your care, master. Felix nodded expressionlessly. You should get another one. Elder Kraken advised. Someone to take care of simple tasks in house chores like a maid or a butler. Sekiro was too expensive for such tasks as he would be considered Felix's primary subordinate for difficult missions. Okay, but I am paying for this. Felix found no reason to reject. As you wish. After a few minutes of strolling around the servants' marketplace, Felix discovered that even though servants were quite expensive with a monthly payment of 100 lumis or higher. Visit nfelben.cm for you ovals. Since he was paying for it, he wanted to be as cheap as possible. In the end, Felix and Elder Kraken walked in front of a small, dog-like girl whose spirit stood out in her timid demeanor. She was enveloped in an ethereal indigo hue, her skin reflecting an enchanting array of blues and purples that changed intensity as she moved. Her delicate canine ears were sharply pointed, twitching at every unfamiliar sound that echoed in the marketplace. Her eyes, wide and clear, shone with an innocent, azure brilliance against her indigo skin, darting around nervously as she scanned the crowd. Small tufts of indigo-colored fur covered her body, adding an extra layer of vibrancy to her appearance. Dressed in a simple, oversized white tunic, she seemed almost out of place amidst the exotic spirits. Her tiny hands clung tightly to the fabric of her dress, her knuckles white with tension. While other spirits were trying their best to stand out and make themselves visible, she tried to make herself smaller, more inconspicuous. Hi. When she noticed Felix, Elder Kraken, and Sekiro staring at her intensely, she quivered as she introduced herself. Little one, why are you so scared? Elder Kraken asked with a gentle tone. He found her attitude quite bizarre as there weren't really many things in the heavenly plane capable of erecting fear from anyone. As long as one respected the rules, the silver spectral enforcers wouldn't pay them a visit even for millions of years. I am sorry. The girl stuttered an apology as she kept her head lowered, not answering Elder Kraken's question. Sigh, let's go, she is of no use to you. Elder Kraken said telepathically. Felix ignored him and asked the girl with an indifferent tone, what's your name? Kara. Can you clean? Yes. Can you cook? Yes. Can you make errands? Yes. You're hired. Felix extracted a red shimmering crystal from his own body and then turned it into dozens of yellow crystals and hundreds of much smaller green crystals. Then, he threw a yellow crystal at her and she caught them reflexively. This is advanced payment for 2 months, you will get the rest if you prove to yourself to be useful. Felix ordered, follow me. Are you sure about this? She doesn't seem too reliable and I have a feeling that even those basic tasks will be hard for her. Elder Kraken said as he walked away with Felix, not caring that the girl was hearing him. She costs 50 lumis a month, it's not too much of a risk. Felix replied, his voice drifting away and away from her. Wait for me. Fearing that she might lose them in the crowd, Kara quickly chased after them with a nervous expression. When she reached them, she stuck behind Felix's back ache into glue and kept her head lowered the entire journey. After a few hours of roaming all the important locations in the city, Elder Kraken finally took Felix to his new home. Nestled within a well-managed apartment complex in the bustling city, Felix's new residence was a tasteful blend of comfort and functionality. The apartment complex itself was an impressive structure, a combination of sleek modern architecture with elements of spiritual aesthetic. Ethereal blue vines crept around the balconies, their soft glow adding a unique charm to the otherwise steely structure. The apartment was located on one of the higher floors, granting a panoramic view of the cityscape. I think you should take a look at it. Upon entering the apartment, Felix and his servants were greeted by a spacious, open-plan living area. The floor was covered in polished spirit stone tiles that shimmered softly under the ambient lighting. The walls, painted in a soothing shade of celestial white, complemented the luminous glow of the city outside. The living area was elegantly furnished with low-set furniture in muted earth tones. A plush, comfortable couch faced a floating holographic screen that served as a window to the astral dimensions outside. To the side was a compact, modern kitchenette fitted with the latest spiritual appliances. An iridescent dining table sat beside it, large enough to entertain a small group of guests. What do you think? It's perfect. Felix nodded in appreciation even if his expression was as cold as ever. The rent here is pretty high as you need to pay 2,000 lumis each month, but I have put a 2-year advance for you. Elder Kraken informed. Kura and even Sekiro showed somewhat of an envious look, as there was nothing better than having a rich patron above your head. In their minds, Elder Kraken was Felix's master, and he was extremely generous with him, as there weren't many masters who would bother to help their servants improve their lives. Thanks for everything. I wish I could do more, but alas. Elder Kraken sighed telepathically. Government personnel are forbidden from helping spirits in this direct manner, and if I wasn't an elder with only Lord Hades above me, I would have been punished immensely. If only it was possible to replace one of my servants with you, but you need to be gold-colored first. The Heavenly Plains government was the most powerful entity, and everyone in it enjoyed many privileges. Unfortunately, the government personnel were banned from giving their lumus to anyone besides their servants. Even their servants had a limit on how much they could obtain. Right now, Elder Kraken was actually breaking the rules for Felix, and if he overdid it, it wouldn't end well for him. You already did too much. I can take it from here now. Felix gave him a slight head nod in gratitude. Speaking of the devil, I am being called by Lord Hades. Elder Kraken suddenly frowned. Is it really related to this? I thought he should be occupied with Isna. Will you be in trouble? Felix asked. I hope not. Without explaining any further, Elder Kraken said his goodbyes to Felix and took off, not daring to leave Lord Hades waiting for him. This time, he didn't meet him in the Ethereal Council but went straight into his throne chamber. The moment he came face to face with him and saw the look in his eyes, Elder Kraken knew immediately that it wasn't going to end well for him. Come clean, what's your relationship with that mortal? What's your motive for helping him out? Lord Hades questioned. Lord Hades made it obvious that he had his eyes on Felix the moment he was sent away. My lord, I am ashamed to admit this, but I wanted to help him to gain favor from Madame Isna. Elder Kraken uttered truthfully. Elder Kraken knew that it would be impossible to lie to Lord Hades, but giving him one of the many truths was better than telling the real truth. Since he truly wanted to receive favor from Isna deep down, he didn't seem to be lying in the slightest. I knew some of you will think of this, but I did not think it will be you. Looks like you are getting bolder and bolder. Lord Hades waved his hand carelessly. You will have 1 million lumus deducted from your salary as a punishment. Elder Kraken grimaced, as this amount wasn't little even for him and would set him back quite heavily. If you do not leave the mortal alone, you will wish only lumus are taken away from you. Lord Hades warned. Rest assured, my lord, I won't break the rules anymore. Elder Kraken promised with his head lowered. You are excused. Elder Kraken exited the throne chamber and contacted Felix immediately. My apologies, little one, but I won't be able to help you with anything until you become a golden rank spirit and turn into my servant. Good luck with finding a method to upgrade your color. After this message was sent, Elder Kraken did not dare approach or contact Felix anymore, as he knew that Lord Hades was pretty merciful with his earlier punishment. He understood that Felix was more than capable of taking care of himself and reaching golden color on his own without needing him to jeopardize his position. As he had expected, Felix answered him with, Do not mind it, I'll reach out to you after I become a golden rank spirit. After that, there was no more interaction between them. Honestly, if Elder Kraken thought that Lord Hades would be on to him so quickly, he would have gone all out and invested in Felix much more. Alas, he wanted to be low-key to not receive any attraction. Alright, introduce yourselves properly this time and tell me about your previous masters and your goal in this realm. Felix asked indifferently as he sat on the living room couch while his servants were standing in front of him. Sekiro glanced at nervous Kura and knew that there was no way she was going to be speaking first. I have come here as a blue-colored spirit a century ago. I have switched between 3 masters and remained masterless in the past decade. Sekiro shared. You have upgraded your rank to yellow in such a decent period. Felix inquired, are you focusing on becoming a golden spirit? My target is to become a soul scribe in the government. Sekiro answered. So soul scribe? Kura gasped in lowercase. Even Felix was left a bit surprised. He knew that the soul scribe profession was one of the most demanding governmental positions for any spirit. That's because their job was to gleam into the living world and keep records of every event, law, and decision made in the realm. In addition to other realms, they also chronicle the lives of spirits and the living, recording their deeds and experiences. To be given such massive authority and information access about the living world and other realms, this profession required one to be extremely capable and intelligent. Though, if one made it, then he could be considered as he made it in the spirit realm, as this position reward an immense amount of lumus, in addition to authoritative prowess that would make anyone below ethereal elders obey them. Interesting, is that your dream goal? Or are you in it for lumus? I don't care about lumus. Sekiro replied, his eyes gazing into the window. I am just burning with curiosity about the living world, and this is the only way to find out about it. I see. Felix couldn't really relate to his reasoning as his memories were left intact about the living world, so his curiosity on this subject was more than fulfilled. He knew that he could easily achieve Sekiro's dream by showing him some of his memories, but he wasn't a fool to out himself like this. Having memories from the living world was unacceptable in the heavenly plane, and if one was found out, a heavy punishment would be delivered. Elder Kraken didn't risk not giving the whole truth to Lord Hades for no reason, as he knew that neither he nor Felix would make it out in one piece. How about you? Felix turned to Kura, his serious stare putting a shiver down her spine. Forget it. Felix turned to Sekiro and asked, tell me about known and unknown quick methods to farm lumus. Quick methods, Sekiro rubbed his scaly chin and answered, there is spiritual treasures hunting, as the heavenly plane is supermassive and is filled with many new exploration areas. Though, this method depends heavily on luck, as even if you found one treasure, it won't be worth the trouble as you need to hit the jackpot. What else? There are beasts taming and husbandry, as you can hunt spiritual beasts and tame them. Then, sell them in the market to either collectors or those interested in having a transportation method. Sekiro clarified, as you know, everyone might be able to fly, but the heavenly plane is too spacious and transportation methods are the best across cities. It will take too much time and investment, Felix said calmly. Visit Nfelben, cm for you ovals. True, well, there is spectral gambling. You can wager lumus in fight tournaments, and if you are lucky, you can return home with 10 times the profit. But as you know, gambling is too much of a risk and it is quite easy to get addicted to. Sekiro frowned. many spirits ended up getting thrown outside of the heavenly plane after liquefying all of their light due to gambling. Tell me more about these tournaments. Felix said, there must be a prize for the winners, correct? Of course, and it's not shabby in the slightest. Sekiro explained, each city holds its own fighting tournament and many interested viewers tune in to watch. The top 3 winners in those tournaments will be fighting each other to decide the strongest spirit in the entire heavenly plane. Though, I do not advise you with this method. Sekiro shook his head. Spirits participating in those tournaments are mostly red-colored and there are a few golden-colored ones joining for the fun of it. Most of them are considered regular participants as those tournaments are held on a yearly basis. Even though death isn't an option, you will still be risking your entrance fee. It's made quite expensive to recruit only the serious participants. How much? Felix inquired. I believe it's 3,000 lumas for this year's tournament. Sekiro added, while it's expensive as hell, the top 3 winners will win 10,000, 20,000 and 50,000 lumas respectively. Though, the greatest reward is participation in the larger-scale Heavenly Plane tournament, which gives out insane rewards for the winners, reaching up to 500,000 lumas. Whoa! Kura's big eyes widened in amazement at the sound of those large numbers as she barely managed to collect 10,000 lumas in her entire life. Interesting. Meanwhile, a gleam appeared in Felix's eyes, which made Sekiro's heart skip a beat. I think you should take a look at it. Sir. I know. Felix waved his hand carelessly, I am not dumb to participate. Just as Sekiro was about to sigh in relief, Felix added nonchalantly, without proper preparation. Both Kura and Sekiro looked at each other and seemed to share an inner feeling of a troublesome future under Felix's reign. Sekiro, do me a favor and use 2 of your golden crystals to buy me as many spiritual treasures as possible. Felix promised calmly, I'll pay you when I win. Sir, that's a bit. Sekiro wanted to reject his request and he had every right to do so, as even though he was his servant, his lumas belonged to him and no one could take them away against his will. Trust me, I know what I am doing, Felix assured with a stern tone. It's not that I don't trust you, but you should know that most participants had centuries if not more of time to boost their spiritual prowess through unfathomable levels. Sekiro shook his head, 10,000 lumas worth of treasures is nothing but a drop of water in an ocean. Sekiro was in his right mind to feel threatened that his master would lose his money and come back to him empty-handed later on. Those tournaments were packed with fighters who made it their life mission to become the best of the best and come on top each year. He had absolutely no faith in Felix's capability to come close to even the top 100 as he was still new to the entire heavenly plane system. Just do it, if I lose, I will liquefy my own light and pay your debt. Felix ordered this time. As you wish. Sekiro nodded and took off into the bazaar. Since Felix gave him his word that his debt would be paid through liquefaction, he had nothing more to worry about. That's because words were considered binding contracts between spirits and if one broke it, silver law enforcers would be involved. You, go gather information about the next tournament, and its current participants. Felix ordered Kura. Okay. Kura swiftly jumped on her feet and dashed in the direction of the wall with a frantic expression, which made her end up smashing her head against it. Thud. Oh yeath. Felix's eyelids twitched but he did not comment, saving Kura an additional embarrassment. With an ashamed expression, she went through the wall this time in her ghost form, not forgetting to switch between them. How could one in his right mind choose such a useless personality? Felix knitted his eyebrows. Did she really choose to be this way or something happened to her, which changed her forever into this? Felix could feel that something was weird about Kura as his senses were tingling, but he ended up dropping the subject as he had no time to waste on his maid when he had a tournament to prepare. Now, a fighting tournament that depends on imagination and fight experience. Felix smiled coldly, who can beat me in this department with my memories of the living world? The heavenly plane combat system could be considered as unlawless as long as one respected the laws of realism. For example, there was no affinities, runic familiarity, talent, or such. The only 2 things that mattered were one's imagination and his spiritual/soul power to bring uttered imagination to life. Since all spirits were clueless about the living world and all of its fantastical abilities, it was extremely difficult to create real abilities based on imagination that could do great damages. Felix did not even need to rely on his imagination as his previously created abilities were more than enough to rule those tournaments as long as he had enough spiritual power to create them. I think it's best to not use my old life's abilities too often as it might raise suspicion on Lord Hades. What do you think as, sigh? Felix ended up massaging his eyelids with a heavy sigh after remembering that he was on his own. He still remembered how much he wished for Asna's annoying voice to be gone from his mind in the earliest years of them being together. But now? He wished for nothing more than her voice to return and keep him company. Knowing that being depressed about this wouldn't help him with anything, Felix allowed his more dominant rational side to retake control. Let's see how those spirits fight. Felix commented as he turned on the holographic TV in the living room. Then, he changed channels until he found the main channel responsible for broadcasting the tournaments across the entire heavenly plane. The moment he clicked on it, a red-colored humanoid bunny reporter appeared at the bottom of the screen while the rest of the screen was displaying an ongoing battle. In the heart of the fighting ring, an epic showdown was underway. The crowd had fallen into a hushed silence as 2 formidable warriors locked gazes. One was Monarch Small, a bulky, regal figure with a fearsome maul, and the other was Crimson Tempest, a lithe fighter with fiery red hair and crackling flames at his fingertips. Fight. As the signal was given, Monarch Small charged first, the ground rumbling under his colossal weight. The air compressed around his maul as he swung it with ferocious power, aiming a deathly blow at Crimson Tempest. At the last second, Crimson Tempest deftly sidestepped, his figure blurring with his winds aiding his maneuverability. Whoosh. Crimson Tempest then launched a counterattack, launching a tornado of flames toward Monarch's maul. The crowd gasped as the flames roared and filled the air with stifling heat. The monarch raised his maul, calling upon his telekinetic power to summon a protective barrier, but the fire was too potent, too wild. The flames twisted around the barrier, feeding off the wind they were conjured with. The barrier wavered and shattered, the powerful flames licking at the monarch's skin, eliciting a grunt of pain. Smoke and ash clouded the vision of the spectators. With a swift and decisive movement, Crimson Tempest conjured a gale, the intense wind parting the smoke. He shot forward like a bullet, propelled by the wind, a sharp blade of pressurized air forming around his arm. He used the monarch's momentary blindness and disorientation to his advantage. The blade of air cut through the smoke, and before monarch's maul could react, it found its mark. A gasp ran through the crowd. The monarch staggered backward, a visible gash on his shoulder, a clear sign of Crimson Tempest's victory. Congratulations to Crimson Tempest for advancing to the next round. Crimson Tempest stood still, his eyes never leaving his opponent as he was declared the victor of this fierce battle. Just as the crowd was about to erupt, Felix cut off the volume and rested his chin on his palm. The fight is extremely basic, reminding me of my own early fights. Felix pondered with a composed expression, is this the level of the entire tournament or just the early stages of it? Felix knew that if everyone used such a simple fighting style throughout the entire tournament, then he was bound to rule it even if he didn't use a single ability from his previous life. For the next battles, this point seemed to be proven more and more as not a single fighter had used any ability on the level of an omnipotent spell. This is getting interesting. Felix raised an eyebrow in intrigue after noticing two golden-colored spirits reaching the finals and utilizing multiple different elemental abilities, and those abilities could be considered deadly even in the living world. Goliath and Avalanche, those two must be the kings in this city when it came to combat. Felix commentated as he spectated their wild and elegant dance under the excited screams of the audience. Even a blind person could see that those two were on a different level compared to other fighters, as they could control at least 5 elements each and they had countless abilities and mixed techniques under their belt. In addition, their telekinesis prowess made even Felix sweat a little internally as he realized that if he didn't improve his spiritual prowess, he could easily get crushed by their telekinesis alone. There is no way 20,000 Loomis worth of treasures is going to help him get close to their spiritual prowess. Felix narrowed his eyes. I am bound to get a third place if I participated without proper preparation against them. While winning 10,000 Loomis was amazing in other people's eyes, it wouldn't even cover his debt with Sekiro, don't even mention the entry fee to the tournament. Felix was gunning for number 1, and if he wanted to achieve it, he had to find a way around the restriction imposed on him. It will be quite easy to handle their telekinesis by using destruction, void, or illusion element. But it will attract too much attention to me and I can't afford that. Using rare elements in those tournaments was one thing, but using the ones he was known for in the living world was another. I think you should take a look at it. Felix didn't dare risk getting caught by Lord Hades or the ethereal elders. I need a new element, something completely unassociated with my previous life, and it is powerful enough to help me against those two veterans. Any suggestions? Felix asked for Asna's input even though he was conscious of the fact that she wasn't with him. Even when no one responded to him, he kept talking like she was there with him. What do you think about gravity? Spirits are banned from turning into their spiritual forms during the battles, so it will be great against them. But I don't think it will be enough to challenge their telekinesis, there must be something else. Even though there were plenty of elements to choose from, Felix kept eliminating them as fast as they pop up in his mind. Common elements such as fire, wind, earth, and water were either useless in his situation or he had an association with them. The same applied to most uncommon elements. As for rare elements, he eliminated void, illusion, time, space, and destruction right off the bat due to their relationship with him. What was left was life, death, creation, and vibration. Life and death elements were useless in battles against spirits, which meant only creation and vibration were valuable options. Creation element in the spirit realm is also useless since everyone can use their imagination to create whatever they wanted. In the living world where there were strict laws and rules, the creation element could be considered the strongest element due to its versatility, but here, everyone could be considered as using creation elements since their creations were based on the limitation of their imagination and spiritual prowess. I guess vibration element is the best option. For me at the moment. Felix said to himself, fortunately, I studied it closely when I considered it as an option. Due to the vibration primogenitor's early passing, no one really knew too much about the vibration element and its abilities. Discover new chapters at novelb.co. This would make anyone in the spirit realm assume that Felix was using his imagination purely to control the vibration, frequencies, and waves in the heavenly plane. Though, I need to prepare greatly to be skilled in it. While the element was powerful and perfect in his situation, Felix understood that it wasn't going to be easy to create its abilities. Still, he didn't hesitate to leave his apartment and fly straight to the complex's roof to begin his training. He perched there, legs crossed, his azure eyes reflecting the starlight. The cool night wind caressed his face, gently ruffling his hair, but his mind was miles away. Let's start with something simple. With a deep breath, Felix uncurled his fingers, palm outstretched to the heavens above. He closed his eyes, focusing his thoughts on the void of his palm. It was a ripple in the pond of his thoughts, a sudden spark in the depth of his consciousness. When he opened his eyes again, a tiny flame, no bigger than a candle's light, flickered in the center of his palm. It was a small thing, a wisp of fire suspended in the open air, yet it felt monumental. The flame danced and swirled, casting wavering shadows that flickered across Felix's face. As long as I know how the laws of fire works, I can create it using my imagination. What an fascinating concept. Felix narrated as he controlled the flame's orange hue to shift into a vibrant red, then into a soothing blue. A silent order and the flame turned a brilliant green, filling the rooftop with an otherworldly glow. Then, it was a deep indigo, a color that mirrored the night sky. Those weren't just normal color changes, but actually changing the characteristic of fire. If other spirits knew that he pulled this off in a few seconds, they would honestly worship him for being the most talented spirit in the heavenly plane. But in reality, Felix was merely drawing from his memory. I can't use attributes as well. With a blink of an eye, the flame's color returned to orange. Now, let's see how vibration works. Felix narrowed his eyes and focused on the flame, wanting to control it through its frequency. Though, Felix understood that fire did not have a frequency in the traditional sense. The fire was a chemical reaction, combustion, that produced heat and light. It was more accurate to control the frequency of the light that the fire emitted. If he considered a common yellow flame, the frequency of that light was roughly around 510 terahertz, which corresponded to a wavelength of about 5,901 nanometers. He understood that this was a rough estimate, and actual values could vary, but imagining that his mind could pinpoint the exact frequencies of each object, energy, or such, allowed him to pinpoint it and control it. He could feel the vibration, the frequency of the fire, humming in his veins, intertwining with his very essence. The realization of this connection was not one of shock, but of quiet acceptance, as if he had always known this to be true. The flame, vibrant and blazing, danced on the top of his palm, its intensity varying with his control. When the link was established, Felix attempted to alter the vibration, the frequency of the flame. He imagined it extinguishing, the vibrations becoming slower, less intense. Slowly, he began to notice a change. The flame flickered, and wavered, as if uncertain of its existence. Its wild, chaotic dance began to slow down, the fire diminishing in intensity. His heartbeat followed, slowing down in sync with the flame. He could feel it, a distinct shift in the energy, a disruption in the flame's vibrational frequency. For a moment, the flame seemed to sputter out, threatening to disappear completely. But Felix had a different plan. With a thought, he imagined it regaining its vibrancy, the vibrations speeding up, the frequency increasing. And just like that, the flame roared back to life, more vibrant than ever, flickering excitedly in his palm. No wonder Asna said it's one of the most powerful elements in the universe. Felix commentated as he snuffed out the flame. He knew that he was not just manipulating fire. He was resonating with the universe, becoming a part of its symphony. Becoming part of its symphony implied his ability to manipulate any kind of energy, object, liquid, and the list goes on. That's because, on a universal scale, vibration could be understood as a fundamental characteristic of energy and matter. Everything in the universe, from the tiniest particles to the most massive galaxies, was in a constant state of vibration. The concept of vibration could be traced back to quantum mechanics, a branch of physics that described the behaviors of particles at the smallest scales. According to this theory, every particle exhibited a wave-like nature, which was characterized by a specific frequency or set of frequencies. This was often referred to as the particle's vibrational frequency. On a larger scale, galaxies, stars, and planets also exhibited vibrational characteristics, albeit in different ways. For instance, stars vibrated due to the nuclear fusion processes occurring in their cores. These vibrations could be measured as variations in their brightness and were a major method by which astronomers understood the interior of stars. This concept of the universe being in constant vibration was rooted in theories such as the ancient string theory, which postulated that the fundamental constituents of reality were not particles, but one-dimensional strings that vibrated at different frequencies. It was this continual vibration and interaction of energy and matter that helped to shape the universe as everyone knew it. Therefore, when Asna said that at the peak of vibration manipulation, Felix could bend reality to his own will, she wasn't joking around. Such a complex element would have been close to impossible to learn and master without its primogenitor teachings. But here, Felix smiled coldly, I can use my own creativity to break down barriers and find the truth at the end of the path. With his imagination and intelligence, Felix could test out what works and what doesn't without suffering any consequences. Felix didn't know if it was possible to obtain vibration manipulation if he returned to the living world, but he wasn't going to waste this opportunity to study and dominate the element. A couple of hours later, Sekiro had returned from his errand. He brought with him more than 50 spiritual treasures. They were small, ornate relics that bore an uncanny resemblance to exotic fruits, each carrying a unique imprint of power that could grant its possessor a certain level of enhancement. Sir Felix, are you sure about this? Sekiro stressed, it's not too late to sell them and void your plan. Sekiro wasn't really afraid of him not receiving his payment but more about Felix ending up regretting his decision later on. Since Felix gave his word to use his own light to pay him back, he understood that if he liquefied 20,000 lumis, he would drop to orange or even below it. That was a massive blow as it would take him 10 times the effort to get back to his original color grade. I think you should take a look at it. I know what I am doing, Felix replied calmly as he lined up the spiritual treasures in front of him. Okay. Sekiro shook his head and remained quiet on the side, not bringing this issue up again. Slowly, Felix opened his mouth and ingested the first spiritual treasure. Visjate and Felbin. CM for new updates. The moment it passed his lips, a profound aura washed over him, a wave of powerful energy surging into his soul like a rushing river. His spirit trembled, but he remained composed, bearing the impact with unwavering resolve. Not a bad sensation. Felix commentated as he picked up the next one and continued to consume the spiritual treasures, each ingestion intensifying the surge of energy. He could feel the pure spiritual power coursing through his veins, pulsing within his soul, and amplifying his spiritual prowess with each heartbeat. However, as he kept devouring one after the other, he started to feel a spiritual pressure, a crushing force that wanted him to slow down his rapid consumption. Knowing that he couldn't die from this, Felix pushed through, swallowing treasure after treasure. 20, 30, 40, the count kept rising. His whole body was shaking now, his spirit thrumming like a plucked string, vibrating with the countless influxes of spiritual power. The pressure was starting to go from uncomfortable to straight out painful, but Felix was resolute. Why isn't he stopping? Doesn't the pain affect him? Sekiro had eaten his own fair share of spiritual treasures and knew that when his body reached its limit, it was best to stop and continue when his spirit finished its digestion. Otherwise, the pain would make one wonder if he was truly a spirit. But, Felix seemed like the pain was merely tickling him as his eyelids didn't even twitch. By the time the final energy wave receded, Felix opened his eyes. They shone with a new, brilliant light, the light of a soul transformed, a soul fortified. His spiritual prowess had reached unprecedented heights, the successful consumption of 50 spiritual treasures having launched him into a realm he had never imagined. Still, Felix knew that it was just barely enough to put him in the lowest form of the participation list. Whoosh. Suddenly, Kura entered the apartment from the wall and landed in front of Felix and Sekiro. Her cheeks looked flushed, her furry forehead was damped from sweat and her eyes seemed like they were about to break into tears at any moment. What's the matter? Felix frowned. No. Nothing. Kura tightened her fists as hard as she could and then said, I have brought you the information you wanted. Tell me what happened to you, I don't like repeating myself. Felix stated coldly as he reached out with his hand, making Kura flinch with her eyes closed. This reaction made Felix pull back his hand with a serious expression. Was she abused physically? Is this why she is always scared? But, how can she get abused physically in the spirit realm with such tough law enforcers roaming around? Kura, is it possible that you have met your previous dominate in your way? Sekiro asked with a hardened expression as he was more familiar with the evil undergoing in the heavenly plane than Felix. Kura opened her tearful eyes and nodded her head with great difficulty, seemingly shivering just at the notion of her previous dominate being mentioned in her presence. When Felix saw how scared she was, resembling an abused puppy, he neither felt sympathetic nor saddened. He just felt, nothing, like there weren't more details for his other emotions to be triggered. Kura, tell me what happened to you with your previous master. So, he ordered more information without an ounce of sympathy in his tone, causing Sekiro to give him a bad look. Sir Felix, that's way out of line, Sekiro complained to Kura as she didn't even dare to glance in Felix's direction after he tried to touch her before. Shut up. Felix eyed him coldly. I hired her to run errands and be my maid. If her previous relationship with her dominate is going to affect her duties negatively, I have no reason to keep her under me. I am not a charity. Understood. Felix eyed Kura and ordered, now talk if you want to keep your job. I can't afford to be on the streets again. Kura's mind was a mess as her emotions and rational thinking kept clashing the moment she realized that Felix wasn't joking around. She knew that it would be extremely difficult to become a servant of another spirit even with her price being this low due to her past. In the heavenly plane, spirits must have a place to stay as each day that went by and they had no home, a percentage of their own light gets liquefied as a punishment. Kura's color had dropped to indigo because of this and she was going to drop to black color if she kept receiving those penalties. At the end of the path, she would end up kicked out of the heavenly plane and have her status occupied by someone more worthy. Speak. Felix pressured coldly, uncaring about her internal turmoil. Kura sat quietly across from Felix, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. She was silent for a moment, her indigo eyes flitting between Felix's concerned gaze and the floor. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. My former master, he wasn't kind, she began, her words halting and slow. Her gaze dropped down to her hands, her knuckles white from how tightly she was gripping them. He was a noble, a man of influence, well respected in the city. People would bow in his presence, and speak highly of him in the streets. But behind closed doors. She paused, a small shudder running through her. She looked up at Felix, her eyes reflecting an ocean of sorrow and pain. He would threaten me, saying if I dared to report him, he would ensure I would never find a master again. He would use his influence to tarnish my reputation and leave me to survive on the streets. No one would hire an outcast spirit. A tear slipped down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. He would flaunt his power, his connections. I was just a servant, powerless against him. It was terrifying. Every day was a struggle. A struggle to serve, to obey, to survive. Her voice trailed off, her gaze unfocused as she remembered the past, her body trembling slightly from the memories. It was a confession, a tale of abuse and fear, one that cast a shadow over the vibrant city they were in. It was a cruel reminder that even in a realm of spirits and grandeur, there was darkness lurking beneath the surface. When Felix saw her condition, he didn't push her for more details even when a lot of parts didn't make sense. Instead, he looked at her with an indifferent expression and said, I am not gentle or kind, but I am not interested in abusing anyone. So, just do your errands and chores, no one will dare touch you under my presence. Now go make us something to eat, there is food in the fridge. Felix sent her away with a wave, sparing her at last. Okay. Kura wiped her tears and bolted into the kitchen. The moment she left, Felix turned to Sekiro and asked him, his eyes as cruel as a ravenous wolf. Tell me more about those nobles and how can they mistreatment their reputation to keep servants down, most importantly, why? A noble is a term given to only governmental officials with more than 4% property in the city. Astral is considered the capital city of the divine realm. A noble possessing an entire 4% of property implies that he is considered one of the most authoritative figures in the entire city. Sekiro frowned, but this makes no sense as there is no way a noble of such high status will be an abuser or hire such a low-ranked spirit as a servant. It does make sense if Kura used to be an orange-ranked spirit or higher and was forced to downgrade into indigo because of him. Felix stated coldly. Sekiro sucked a deep cold breath at his horrific statement, feeling shivers crawling down his spine. He wanted to retort, but he found no words as his defending the noble implied taking Kura as a liar, her entire demeanor matched an abused victim to mistake her for a fraud. But at the same time, a rank fall from orange or red to indigo was unimaginable as it would require liquidation of close to 100,000 lumus if not more, which translated to 1,000,000 lumus in reverse to regain the same rank. He must have thrown her out and used his authority to keep her from finding either a house or a job to support herself. Felix uttered expressionlessly, with the punishments imposed on a daily basis, she found herself at indigo rank. If your theory is right, then we have offended this noble by hiring his blacklisted spirit. Sekiro uttered with a stern tone, no wonder no one wanted to touch her even with a 50 lumus a month's price. Must be. What do we do now? Felix sat on the couch and turned on the TV, then, he switched the channels with an indifferent expression. About what? He asked. I think you should take a look at. We will be paid a visit soon by the noble's underlings and get warned to drop Kura back to the streets. Sekiro shared with a solemn tone. If we don't, we will suffer. Ring ring. Before he could finish his sentence, the doorbell rang twice across the living room, causing Sekiro's scales to tighten in dread. Check who is it, Felix ordered indifferently, not bothering to even stand up from his couch. What do I say if it's them? Sekiro asked with a stern tone. Bring them to me. Without delay, Sekiro went to the door. The moment he opened it up, he was met with two pairs of ember-red eyes, belonging to two wolfish spirits, their forms hued a fierce, crimson red. They were tall and broad-shouldered, their human-like bodies muscular and intimidating, wreathed in smoky tendrils of scarlet energy. Are you the owner of this apartment? The one on the right asked, his voice a gravelly echo that seemed to vibrate the air around them. Isn't polite to introduce yourselves first before asking such intrusive questions. Sekiro said, his eyes unwavering. The spirit on the left chimed in, his voice a higher pitch, yet no less menacing. We belong to the Red Fangs organization that owns this entire apartment complex. We have received news that a blacklisted spirit is being housed here. So, please don't cause either of us any unnecessary trouble and kick her out. Otherwise, you will be thrown out with her and get blacklisted as well. They prowled forward in unison, their ethereal forms casting disturbing shadows on the wallpaper of the apartment. Just as Sekiro wanted to respond, Felix's voice echoed from the depth of the apartment. Bring them in. Please. Sekiro opened the door to the limit and welcomed them with an extended hand, not bothering himself to speak any further. Knowing that he wasn't the boss, those two ignored his existence and walked to the living room. When they noticed Felix chilling on the couch with an indifferent attitude, it got slightly on their nerves. But, they didn't come here to cause a scene but to deliver a message. Top VL updates on n/o/v/lb/in.com. But just as they wanted to repeat what they said before to Sekiro, Felix opened his mouth and disclosed. Before you say anything foolish, check the name of who leased the apartment. What is he talking about? The two Red Fang members glanced at each other and then at Felix with confused expressions. However, seeing his casual attitude made them somewhat nervous that he was a attendant of a big shot and they would be causing trouble for themselves. Thus, one of them swiftly brought up all the leases of his complex and pressed on the one belonging to this apartment. The moment he scrolled down the contract and saw the signed name at the bottom, his fur stood up, his slits widened, and his heart almost stopped beating at once. What's wrong, WI? Hey. The moment his partner glanced at the name, he ended up freezing in the same manner. Now that you understand, beat it, and don't come knocking on my house ever again. Felix waved his hand at them and returned to watching the TV to educate himself. The two Red Fangs members found themselves outside of the apartment as fast as they entered it, the door closing behind them with a loud thud. Still shaken, they looked at each other and saw the dread in their eyes. What do we do? What do we say to Boss Alves? We give it to him straight and pull ourselves from this mess. His partner exhaled deeply. We are too small to get involved in a conflict between ethereal elders. He nodded in agreement and flew away from the apartment, not daring to annoy Felix any longer. Their reaction was understandable as the lease was signed with Elder Kraken's name, which was enough to put absolute terror in anyone's heart within the heavenly plane. They had no clue about this beforehand since the leasing was supervised by their subordinates and not everyone was familiar with ethereal elders' names as they almost never make an appearance outside of the council. Meanwhile, Felix was being grilled inside by Sekiro after the sudden retreat of Red Fangs. How did you make them leave so fast? Red Fang's organization fears no one but governmental officials. Sekiro asked with an intrigued tone. Is that so? Felix rubbed his chin. What exactly do they do? They can be considered as a hedge fund. They are known to invest in anything with an opportunity to earn Loomis. Their aggressive investment method caused them to lose plenty of Loomis, but it still didn't offset the amount earned in their hits. This entire complex is nothing but one of the tens of other complexes across the entire heavenly plane. Is that so? Felix said calmly, so, they are considered big shots in the city, right? More than you can imagine. Sekiro fished for a reaction, so, for them to leave us alone, they must have been scared by someone much bigger, the government is the only thing bigger than them. Alas, Felix didn't bother to clear his doubts by exposing Elder Kraken. He knew that would bring him trouble and Felix merely wanted to use his name as a threat not flaunt it around with each chance he had. If he wasn't confident that the Red Fangs organization would keep the information to themselves, he wouldn't have brought it out. But, a contract was a contract. Regardless of the noble pulling the strings, they could not give out Elder Kraken's name or any other name of the leased tenants without their permission. As expected, the moment those two members returned to the headquarters and updated their boss, he was put in a tough predicament. Such AF * King terrible luck, what do I say to Duke Humphrey? Alves rubbed his tiresome eyelids. He was an imposing figure who carried the aura of a majestic eagle. His sharp eyes, as piercing as an eagle's gaze, never missed a detail. There was an unwavering sureness in his steps, as though he could see everything from a great height, surveying his surroundings like a raptor. His hair, styled back, was the color of burnished gold, much like an eagle's plumage under sunlight. It was clear to anyone who looked upon him that Boss Alves commanded respect, his presence as formidable and regal as the king of birds. Yet, at this very moment, he seemed like a bird caught in a cage. Boss, we may not be allowed to give out the name, but we can tell him that the blacklisted spirit is residing under a noble's protection and we can't do anything about it. His subordinate suggested. This is a lazy response and the Duke isn't going to like it very much, especially when he has bailed our organization more than 3 times. Boss Alves shook his head. We are in this whether we like it or not. The least we can do is find a way to kick them out of our complex and pass this hot potato to someone else. Boss Alves wasn't fond of unnecessary conflicts, especially when he had nothing to gain from them. In this instant, he saw nothing to earn from this conflict besides upsetting one of the elders regardless of what he did. How can we do that? His subordinate, I doubt that man is going to agree to void the lease. Shower him with Loomis until he will have no choice but to accept the offer and leave voluntarily. Boss Alves ordered. As a businessman, he understood that relations and networks were the greatest assets one could own at the upper echelons. While Loomis was important, maintaining those relations was much more serious as it might result in his entire empire falling apart with a mere mistake. I think you should take a look at. So, before the Duke could use them as a pawn to create Felix's life hell and antagonize Elder Kraken, he was planning to buy him off and send him to another district in the city outside of his jurisdiction. In a sense, he would be completing his main task as Kuro would get kicked out of the apartment as the Duke wanted. Read latest OVLS at nv/e/l/by.com. Make it happen quickly. I need to report an update to the Duke before he gets antsy. The moment they heard this, the two wolfish spirits returned to Felix's apartment as fast as they could. Then, they rang the bell and were met with Sekiro again. This time, they didn't even wait for him to welcome them as they straight out went to the living room and offered with a serious tone, 5,000 Loomis and a full refund of the 2-year lease that's paid to cancel the contract. Didn't I tell you to never come back again? Felix eyed them nonchalantly. Do you want me to get the law enforcers involved? 10,000 Loomis as a bonus. Sekiro, call the law enforcers and tell them we are being harassed by the landlord. 20,000 Loomis. The wolfish spirits' faces got flushed in anger and frustration as this bonus was too much for them to stomach. Alas, their leader told them to offer him anything as long as he decide to leave. They are on the way, sir. Sekiro informed. Good. Felix didn't even acknowledge the two wolfish spirits' existence and kept watching the TV, which made them even madder. How can you act like this? We are offering you 20,000 Loomis and even a refund of the lease. You will have more or less 70,000 Loomis in your account without lifting a finger. Stop being stubborn and accept the damn offer. His partner eyed Felix coldly. We can't go any higher than this. When Felix heard this, he pressed pause on his remote control and finally turned to look at them. Even though he was a mere red-colored spirit, his unblinking emotionless stare sent a shiver down their spine as they felt like they were being stared at by a real predator. Just as the pressure started to get too heavy on them, Felix turned to Sekiro and asked, Sekiro, what's the cheapest amount needed to purchase an apartment near the center of the city? The prices change depending on the seasons and the market, but currently, it will cost you more than $500,000 to own an apartment in that area. Sekiro answered. Felix turned back to the wolfish spirits and disclosed casually as he returned to watching the TV, if you want me gone, proposal me that. You. His condition made them both feel a sudden urge to beat the living sh*t out of him and then kick him out of the apartment against his will. $500,000 Loomis? Even when their leader told them to proposal him what he wanted, they knew that he never meant for the price to reach this height. It was just ludicrous to even consider his offer. One of them took a deep breath to relax his emotions and said, 30,000 Loomis as a bonus is our last offer. Take it if you are smart, if not, we will create you regret. What's going on here? Abruptly, the wolfish spirit's speech was caught midway by the sudden entry of a silver featureless spirit. He was tall and imposing, every inch of him radiating an authority that seemed to press against the very walls of the room. His form shimmered with a dazzling silver hue, reflecting and refracting the lights in the room. He wore a uniform of the law enforcers, a high-collared tunic of the deepest silver adorned with various insignia and emblems, their meaning lost on Felix. I am being harassed in my house by them. Felix pointed his finger at them without an ounce of hesitation, causing their expression to get pale instantly. You. Why are you harassing your tenant? The law enforcer gave the two wolfish spirits a cold stare, making their hearts almost leap out of their throats. They ought to be afraid as the law enforcer's punishments were extremely severe and in the best scenario, they would get a considerable amount of Loomis liquefied from them. There was just a misunderstanding, we never meant to harass him and will never dare do so to our precious tenants. One of them swiftly tried to de-escalate the situation. Alas, Felix wasn't planning to let this die out this easily as he had a much more sinister plan in mind. Sir, they have barged into my house twice like they own the place. I have paid for 2 years of the lease in advance and I am still being treated like this. Felix shook his head. I wonder how others are treated if they dared miss a monthly payment. Bastard. **T. Chills coursed on the wolfish spirits' spines at his suggestive statement as they understood immediately that Felix was setting them up to get a much deeper investigation from the law enforcers. They knew that if the law enforcer's interest was piqued and he decided to dig deeper, he would find their true harassment of other tenants, which would be enough to penalize them and even their entire organization quite significantly. What's worse, if Felix decided to take it even deeper, he could bring out Kara's situation and expose the fact that she was blacklisted. While it would be difficult for them to win the case without legit evidence, this matter would harm the Duke's reputation nevertheless and it would have happened because of their organization. 70,000 Loomis as a bonus and I will drop this. Suddenly, a lifeline was dropped to their rescue, though this line was filled with thorns, making them understand if they dared to latch into it, they were bound to be left with bloody wounds. Still, they knew that if Felix kept pressuring the law enforcer with this case, the consequences would be much more severe than a single shush money. Greedy F***er. 50,000 and you will stay the F***ck away from our organization for eternity. 70,000 and I will leave this trash hole. Also, don't negotiate with me as the moment I get asked to file the case, it will be too late for you. Felix counter-offered causally. You hooligan. The wolfish spirits were left with hearts burning with fury, but their expressions had to remain the same to not alert the law enforcer. Are you willing to file a case against their harassment or against their entire organization? The law enforcer asked Felix. Felix looked at the wolfish spirits one last time and then opened his mouth. I won. Fine. Fine. You have a deal. I would like to take a couple of minutes to contact my lawyer. Feel free to exert your rights. The law enforcer nodded. Instead of calling this fake lawyer, Felix drafted a quick agreement and sent it to the two wolfish spirits exclusively, making them understand that it would be impossible for them to go back on their word when the law enforcer leave. Without any option left, they signed the agreement begrudgingly. Felix lowered his head apologetically towards the law enforcer the moment he received the signed contract. I am sorry for wasting your time, but looks like there won't be any need to take further actions against my landlords. It's a simple misunderstanding and we have resolved it amicably. Are you sure? The law enforcer narrowed his eyes at the two wolfish spirits, knowing that many spirits end up getting intimidated and pressured to cave in when the moment comes either due to some hush money or pressure from above. I am positive, thank you so much for your service. Felix assured him, his voice as steady as ever. The law enforcer could only nod his head and take his leave as he couldn't pursue this case anymore without the victim's approval. This was one of the many reasons why many low-ranked spirits were getting screwed over by the big companies and such. I think you should take a look at it. The moment he left, Felix's expression turned indifferent again. Go bring me my money, you have half an hour to make it happen. He ordered, not caring about the Red Fang's members seething in absolute rage. Wait here. Alas, they could only grit their teeth and return to the headquarter, knowing that the contract would be considered breached if Felix didn't receive his money in the set period. The penalty for breaching the contract wasn't light in the slightest. Sir Felix, are you sure this is the right move? Sekiro asked, his eyes showing a deep sense of concern. While he had no clue about the details between Felix and the Red Fang's members, he comprehended that they had reached some sort of a deal that wasn't in favor of them in the slightest. What's to worry about? They want to kick us out to distance themselves from our problems, I just made them pay a decent amount for it. Felix replied. I am not talking about that. Sekiro shook his head, having this much Loomis wouldn't matter if we can't find a place to stay unless your master leased a new place for us or we changed cities entirely. Even if we dropped Kura, it wouldn't matter much as they will be doing this out of spite for us. Sekiro was certain that the Red Fang's organization would make an extra effort to reach out to their network and warn them about Felix's party. With the Duke's involvement, no one would want to house Felix even if he paid triple the asking price or provide other services. Don't worry too much about this, I have everything covered. Felix said without a tint of stress in his voice. You know best. Sekiro sighed exasperatedly and sat down next to him. What did I get myself involved in? Sekiro really started to have some regretful thoughts about becoming Felix's servant. Who could blame him? Barely half a day went by and they had already offended a big-time player in the city and were about to get thrown into the streets. Still, he had no plans of ditching Felix as while he was eccentric and somewhat of a troublemaker, he showcased his loyalty by defending Kura even though he had just brought her under his wing. That's something he appreciated more than anything else. I have made food. The. Most updated NVELs are published on n0velj.n.co/m. Suddenly, Kura came out of the kitchen using her telekinesis to control many plates filled with deliciously looking meals. After she put them on the table, she retreated to the back and waited silently with her head lowered. What are you doing? Felix asked. And nothing. She flinched. Sit down with us and eat before it goes cold. Felix shared casually as he began eating with Sekiro. The unexpected offer made Kura speechless, her indigo eyes widening in shock as she stared at Felix. A small, skeptical smile formed on her lips, a stark contrast to the teardrops beginning to pool in her eyes. You want me to sit at the table with you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. A flurry of emotions coursed through her small frame. Happiness for the respect Felix was showing her, and sadness for the stark contrast this had to her previous life. A searing wave of bitter memories surfaced, recalling her past where she ate her meals off the floor while her former master dined comfortably at the table, ignoring her presence. She was not an animal companion to be fed scraps, but a spirit deserving of respect. And for the first time since her servitude, someone was acknowledging her worth. Trembling slightly, she placed her hand on the chair's back, pulling it out slowly. Her gaze lingered on Felix for a moment longer before she finally allowed herself to sit down, relishing the feeling of acceptance and respect. The smile on her face, though tinged with sadness, was undoubtedly the most genuine one she had shown in a long time. And so, the three of them dined in silence uncaring about the chaos they had risen back in the Red Fang's headquarters. He dares to make a mockery out of our sincere offer and threaten us. He dares. Boss Alves' eyes grew insanely cold as he couldn't tolerate such a massive loss of Loomis to a single individual, especially, when he got it through blackmailing them. Be calm, he is only this cocky due to his relation to an ethereal elder, it won't do me or my organization any good to get entangled with him even after paying such an exorbitant price. Boss Alves managed to keep his emotions in check and see the bigger picture. While he was more than livid with Felix, he understood that it would be a foolish mistake to antagonize him as the Duke would definitely use them as his #1 weapon against him. It would make all of their efforts for naught. Still, he wasn't going to let Felix walk out of this without feeling their wrath. Blacklist him and anyone related to him. I don't want him to get in our houses, in our markets, buy any kind of service, or even take a sh*t in peace. Boss Alves ordered coldly, if he wants to live a normal life from now on in my city, he better use his elder's name all the time. On it. Consider it done. A full-scale blacklist was what made Kura's situation this horrible. Since it came from a duke, even transportation services denied her requests to change cities, forcing her to remain imprisoned in one city. While the Red Fang's organization's influence wasn't as potent as the Duke, Felix's experience was bound to become less and less smooth. After his subordinates left, Boss Alves took 2 deep breaths and reached out to his contact list, then, he pressed on Duke Humphrey's name. The moment the call was picked up, Boss Alves' voice echoed throughout the room. I have good news, Duke. His fingers played with a golden eagle pendant around his neck. Our little nuisance, Kura, has been kicked back to the unforgiving streets. Furthermore, I've managed to blacklist her current master. He won't be having fun anywhere in the city unless he invoked his master's name. Top. VL updates on n/o/v/lb/in.com. Duke Humphrey chuckled, a hollow sound that echoed ominously, excellent work, Alves. I knew we could count on you. But, Alves added, his tone turning serious. The master, he has a noble backing him. I fear my reach does not extend that far. A noble. Duke Humphrey's laugh died down. Who is it? I cannot disclose the information as his name has been used in the lease. Boss Alves narrowed his eyes, all I can tell you is that he matches your authority. Interesting indeed. Without any announcement, the hologram faded away, leaving Boss Alves staring into the wall. It doesn't seem like he is planning to drop this even with another elder involved. Boss Alves frowned, what the hell did that little servant do to him to behave like this? 1 hour later. Felix, Sekiro, and Kura could be seen walking through the streets of the bazaar. The Red Fangs came through and paid Felix per the contract, causing both Sekiro and Kura's eyes to almost leap from their sockets at the amount he had obtained. Felix straightaway paid his debt to Sekiro, making him incapable of knowing how to feel about the whole situation. Just a while ago, Felix was as broke as almost any newcomer. In an instant, he became a decently rich spirit with all things considered. Though, his riches came with a nasty price. Everyone is rejecting us, it's because of me, I am sorry. Kura apologized with a depressed tone after another seller rejected to do business with them. When Felix had gotten the payment, he went straight to the bazaar to secure as many spiritual treasures as possible, expecting that the Red Fangs were going to blacklist him. Unfortunately, even when he had acted quickly, they were even faster and almost the entire bazaar refused to do business with him to avoid antagonizing the big man. Felix had no plans to use Elder Kraken's name in such a public space, which made them incapable of buying a single spiritual treasure in the past 15 minutes. It's not you. Felix replied indifferently. Let's visit the Colosseum. In the end, Felix didn't bother wasting more of his time on this and took off toward the Colosseum. I think you should take a look at it. He learned from Kara's information gathering that all tournaments were held in them and that the only method to participate was to show up, run a short trial, and if approved, pay the entry fees and wait until its start. After a short while, they arrived at their destination. Nestled in the heart of Astralis, the grandeur of the Colosseum immediately drew one's gaze. A spectacular feat of modern and fantastical architecture, it combined sleek, silver-white materials and intricately carved celestial patterns that glowed under the influence of ambient spiritual energy. The colossal structure had an open-air design, allowing spectators a glimpse of the cerulean skies above. Its tiers of seats, crafted from a crystalline material, rose in successive circles from the battleground at the center, giving in clear view to thousands of spectators. At the epicenter, an wide arena sat, layered with protective enchantments and bound by an invisible barrier. Strategically placed around the Colosseum, massive holographic screens floated in mid-air, ensuring that no moment of the high-octane battles would be missed, regardless of where the audience was seated. Felix approached the Colosseum with an indifferent expression. As he neared the Colosseum's entrance, the cacophonous cheers of the crowd echoed around him, reminding him of the times he spent in the Supremacy Games. While these noises had intimidated Kara and many newcomers, Felix walked inside like he owned the place. Standing at a sleek desk outside the entrance was an elegantly dressed spirit, shimmering with an aura of authoritative calm. His vibrant emerald skin contrasted with his silver ceremonial attire, and his eyes, an intense violet, scrutinized the participants entering the arena. There was a decent line in front of him and Felix stood at the back with his servants. When his turn had arrived, he wanted to introduce himself when the spirit raised a hand to stop him. My apologies, but you don't fit the requirements to join the tournament. The spirit's voice rang out with a regretful tone. They have a reach even here. Felix felt a ripple of surprise passes through him. His eyes hardened as he retorted, I have every right to participate, just like any other spirit. The attendant's eyes narrowed. Sir, don't make this difficult for me, you know why I can't have you join. Refusing to back down, Felix crossed his arms, maintaining his cold gaze on the attendant. Do I look like I give a sh*t about your woes? You either sign me up or I will get a law enforcer involved. Felix couldn't do much to the shop owners since it was their products and they had every right to deny selling him, but the same didn't apply to the Colosseum. It was a governmental building and all of its related departments followed strict rules. In this case, Felix had every right to join the tournament as long as he could pass the trial and pay the fees. Sir, trust me, turn around and walk away. The official leaned closer and whispered, blacklisted spirits go through a different trial oriented to inflict as much pain as possible. Felix believed him as he knew that the trials and such could be manipulated by the trial supervisors. If they were paid a decent amount, it was more than possible to make it impossible for him to pass it, and even if he did, he would need to go through so much pain and struggle to the point, no one would think it was worth the participation anymore. Still. I don't care, sign me up. Felix replied detachedly. It's your funeral. The entry keeper shook his head at his stubbornness and took Felix's information for a moment before handing him his fighter's card. It had a number on it and an empty place for a name. If I choose landlord again, I will get cuffed out of the heavenly realm instantly. Felix tapped the card in his hand and walked inside the Colosseum, his mind brewing for a new name, a new legacy, and a new way to terrorize anyone in his path. As he walked through the Colosseum, many names flew by Felix's head, some were cool, some were downright bad, but none clicked in his mind. Just as he wanted to use a random name and be done with it, his eyes were attracted to a gift shop at the corner. It was packed with spirits buying either takeaway gifts from their favorite fighters or cheering preps. This scene made him come up with the perfect name. This should do. He wrote it down on the card and placed it inside his pocket, then, he continued towards the heart of the Colosseum where the trials were being held. A few minutes later, as Felix stepped into the arena, it was a gargantuan circular stage made of ethereal crystals, shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Its surface was smooth yet durable, built to withstand the intense battles that would unfold upon it. The arena's periphery was enveloped by towering, translucent barriers that ensured the safety of the spectators while providing them with an unobstructed view of the exhilarating fights. Seats, formed from the same crystalline material, cascaded upwards in tiers around the arena, accommodating thousands of spectators who came to feast their eyes on the spectacle of power and strategy. At the center of the arena, the fighters' platform stood elevated, it was where the spirit combatants clashed. At the moment, it was packed with hundreds of spirit fighters, spread out across the stage, their bodies glowing with vibrant hues. The colors were as varied as the spirits themselves. Some were ethereal yellow while others shimmered in a tranquil green that evoked the freshness of nature. However, it was the spirits radiating with red and orange auras that held the majority. They were like living flames, their bodies flickering and pulsating with raw power. When Felix joined them, he was nothing but a mere swipe of a brush on a canvas of colors, merging and disappearing into its perfection. High above the thrumming excitement of the Colosseum, nestled in their luxurious VIP booths, the city's richest spirits lounged in the lap of ethereal decadence. Their translucent forms, glittering with hues of golden colors, leaned forward against the translucent barrier, their discerning eyes critically appraising the sea of fighters below. I say, this year's talent seems exceptionally vibrant, a tall, regal beautiful spirit, mused, her diamond-like eyes carefully following a particularly aggressive red fighter in the arena. Indeed, Lady Iris, another spirit draped in golden hue agreed, there are more than 40 red spirits and most of them are previously known fighters. Haha, looks like I will be spending a fortune on my sponsorship this year. The group continued in this vein, some expressing interest in certain fighters, others disdain, but all were engaged, their spirits alight with anticipation and the thrill of the hunt. The Colosseum had become their marketplace, the fighters their commodities, and they, the elites, held the power to change the fate of these contenders with their sponsorship. Most of the fighters below had no intentions of paying 3,000 lumus as an entrance fee straight away. Instead, their main goal was to give an amazing performance during the trials and hopefully attract the interest of those rich lords. If they pulled it off, their entrance fee would be paid off in addition to receiving significant support from their sponsor to get stronger if they proved themselves to have the highest chance of winning the tournament. Those rich lords were doing this for the sake of entertainment, but at the same time, they had plenty to earn from wagers, advertisements, the final cash price, and such. Are you going to put your Ravager in this tournament again, Mr. Atticus? Lady Iris inquired as she eyed a lean muscular ogre-like man, wearing a dignified robe, making him resemble an authoritative king. Yes. He responded, his voice rough and deep. Last year's defeat has crushed us all, but he has given it his best and we believe that he should be ready to represent our capital and bring the trophy home. Boss Gideon stressed, his appearance resembling a humanoid hummingbird. I think you should take a look at it. Hold on now, I know that the Ravager is considered the most powerful fighter in our city, but it's too soon to proclaim him as the winner. Madame Arabella smirked. I have prepared a respectable batch of combatants for this year's tournament and I am certain that they will give your fighter a run for his money. I guess you won't be picking anyone from this batch. Lady Iris wondered. While it does look decent, no one has caught my eye to waste an entire sponsorship slot on him. Madame Arabella acted disinterested as she watched the hundreds of combatants hurtled together. Wait for them to fight before judging. We will see. Creak. Suddenly, the VIP's chamber door was opened and everyone's attention was attracted to it. When they spotted the newcomer, all of them displayed startled reactions. Alves? What are you doing here? I thought you aren't interested in such meaningless fights. Lady Iris said. I am here to watch a rat struggle. Boss Alves responded with a cold tone as he sat down next to them. The moment Felix signed up for the tournament, the news reached Boss Alves and he came straightway to the Colosseum to watch Felix suffering in agony to vent some of his anger. His peers were taken aback by his response as they knew that Boss Alves was known for not having almost no enemies due to his pacifist approach. For someone to piss you off, I wonder what he has done. Is it the newly banned spirit? Must be, it's been a while since you have blacklisted anyone. Can you point him for us? His peers joined the discussion and grilled him for answers for their own amusement. Boss Alves' eyelids twitched as he anticipated as much, but he didn't get himself sucked in and remained silent, causing them to get annoyed. Fine, we will figure it out on our own. Madame Arabella reached out to her subordinates and in less than a few seconds, she found out about Felix and what he looked like. It was quite easy when he was banned and almost everyone knew about his appearance from their unified network. He does look interesting with his indifferent attitude and eagle-like eyes. She observed with a curious tone as she zoomed in on Felix. Is it just me or does he gives off veteran vibes like he is an old fighter? Lady Iris frowned. He does gives off a similar vibe, but it can't be. Boss Gideon shook his head, based on his details, he should be either a new arrival to the city or to the entire realm. Even rich and powerful lords like them in the city had no right to access such private information about the spirits in the heavenly plane. So, none of them had any clue that Felix had just arrived on the heavenly plane today. Top VL updates on n/o/v/lb/in.com. Veteran? We will see how he fares in the trial I organized for him. Boss Alves smirked coldly. You gave him the special package? For you to pay so much for it, you really want him to suffer. This will be fun, hee. All of them seemed to have forgotten about the other combatants and now had their attention solely placed on Felix, knowing that no one had passed the special package trial ever since its introduction. 1 hour later. The trial supervisors stopped accepting any more fighters after the total number reached 300. 300 might sound like a lot for a single batch, but one should understand that more than 90% of the applicants had no plans to pay for the entrance fee from their pockets even if they passed the trial. They were here purely to test their luck and see if a sponsor would pick them up. If not, the trials were their first and last step in this tournament. Soon, more than 20 supervisors appeared above the fighters' heads. Whoa! Whoa! Clap! Clap! The Colosseum buzzed with an intense atmosphere as the appearance of the supervisors implied the start of the trials. As always, the fighters will be assigned randomly to the supervisors and they would be responsible for each fighter's trial. TI ring. The moment one of the supervisors finished speaking, all the fighters' cards made a notification noise, causing them to pull out and check them. Goliath. Felix muttered the name that appeared on his card and lifted his head to find him. The moment he did so, his eyes came in contact with Goliath as he was seen staring directly at him with an indifferent expression. Felix knew immediately that he was in for a treat, still, he didn't seem fazed in the slightest. He merely lowered his head and waited for the trials to begin. Follow me. Goliath ordered all the fighters under him while flying to the edge of the arena. When they arrived, they were presented with hundreds of targets, either in the sky or on the ground. Some were affixed in their place, some moved slowly and erratically, and some moved as quickly and unpredictably as a butterfly. Looks like we are starting with an accuracy test, neat. Damn, this is one of my worst weaknesses, I hope the passing score isn't above 75%. 75%? Hat, if you can't even score this *TTY score, why are you wasting everyone's time? I will beat your ass. The fighters in Felix's group clamored noisily for a mere second before Goliath uttered coldly, another word and you will be eliminated straight away. No one dared to open their mouths ever again as they knew that Goliath was renowned for his ruthless approach to testing potential candidates. This is an accuracy trial implemented to test out whether you guys can aim for *T with your abilities or not. Obviously, it doesn't matter what method is used as long you destroy the targets in half a minute. Even though the fighters were allowed to use whatever to destroy the targets, the distant and fast targets still required them to use their abilities and be accurate, otherwise, the time wouldn't be enough. The passing mark is 95%, if you fail to achieve it, turn back and don't bother coming back until next year. The moment Goliath finished his announcement, everyone had their eyes widened to the limit in shock and disbelief. 95%? 95%? Did he make a mistake? This can't be right. When they saw that Goliath's expression didn't even flinch or correct himself after a few moments went by, all of them felt their blood turn cold. The worst part? They couldn't even protest as he had made it clear that elimination awaited them. But, the viewers weren't under the same rules and most of them were taken back by Goliath's brutal requirement, creating plenty of noise around the arena. *T, they really went for it. Sekiro tightened his hands in displeasure, knowing that the Red Fang's organization had manipulated the trial, not caring if tens of other fighters would get eliminated if it meant making Felix's life hell. One by one, the fighters' expressions started to get ugly as this realization hit them the moment they noticed that the other supervisors had given a mere 80% accuracy rating for their groups. Mother **, why is he here if he has gotten blacklisted? Who is it? Bastard. I have to wait an entire year to try again. Is it you? It looks like you. The combatants around Felix started shoving and pointing fingers at each other with furious expressions, wanting to find out the culprit. They knew that the moment a blacklisted spirit got targeted, there was no way he was going to be passing the trial. Unfortunately for them, they were considered mere collateral and they couldn't even involve law enforcers. That's because supervisors were given a range of difficulties to operate on in the trials and Goliath simply decided to choose the hardest one available. Shut up and line up. When your name gets called, move forward and start the test. Goliath ordered loudly, causing everyone to shush down and refocus. In their eyes, they could only give it a try as it was better than waiting an entire year to join the next tournament. Iron Grit. The crowd in the Colosseum murmured with anticipation as Iron Grit stepped into the spotlight. Standing tall and imposing, his metallic body gleamed under the room's ethereal light. Despite the unyielding material of his body, there was a grace to him, an elven elegance that was not lost despite his armored form. With a low, reverberating sound, Iron Grit summoned a quiver of iron arrows, their tips honed to a deadly point. He positioned himself, eyes locked onto the first of the targets, which was the furthest one from his position. I think you should take a look at it. Timer starts now. With a swift motion, he released the first arrow, which found its mark with deadly precision. Cheering erupted from the crowd. But Iron Grit's focus was unwavering. The next arrow was drawn, and once again, the target was pierced effortlessly. Knowing that he could not afford to destroy them one by one, he was forced to create metallic spears, swords, axes, and all sorts of weaponry before launching them into the targets. Boom. 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 Some hit, but most missed as the moving targets were extremely difficult to touch unless one had his entire focus on them. As the target numbers were reduced, only the smaller and furthest ones remained, forcing him to return to his trusted bow and arrows. Alas, Iron Grit's flawless performance began to waver. 20, 15, 10, 5. However, as the targets became smaller and fewer while the time kept counting down mercilessly, the pressure had gotten into Iron Grit's head and caused his performance to drop. By the end of the round, his accuracy rating was calculated, falling short at 87%, missing the 95% mark. Despite his failure, there was no shame on Iron Grit's face, only anger and frustration. 87% was an amazing score as most supervisors never got beyond 85%, which meant, he should have moved to the next stage. Alas, he could only lower his head and curse his tragic luck while walking outside of the Colosseum. Next. Riptide. Goliath called for the next victim. Just like a prisoner walking into the guillotine, Riptide's face reflected nothing but utter despair. 30 seconds later. 75%. Next. 71%. Next. 69%. Next. With each call, the performance of the fighters got worse and worse until the audience switched their focus to the other groups, giving up entirely on Goliath's group. They understood that all of them must have given up, and even if they didn't, the challenge was simply too challenging to be won through mere will. In less than 15 minutes, only 3 players remained under Goliath and Felix was one of them. Goliath eyed Felix with a composed demeanor and called again, "The Traveler, it's your turn." At last. Felix cracked his knuckles with an indifferent expression and stepped up to the challenge. "The Traveler, I wonder why Master chose this name." Karum muttered under her breath as she sat next to Sekiro. Who knows? Sekiro was just as clueless as her. Unbeknownst to them, Felix chose this name to reflect his attitude on his stay in the Heavenly Plane. While all spirits consider the Heavenly Plane as their eternal home, he was a mere traveler and there would come a time when he would return to his rightful place. But for now, it was time to kick some ass. Without taking a moment to aim, Felix casually extended his hand and waited for Goliath's voice. Start. Before Goliath's voice could even reach the ears of the spectators, Felix snapped his finger. It was a simple, nonchalant gesture, one that would typically go unnoticed in any other context. But even in the rowdiness of the Colosseum, the snap echoed like a gunshot into the heart of every observer. Before the echo had even faded, a chain reaction was set in motion. Boom! The first objective exploded into fragments, sending shards of material flying into the air. But the spectacle didn't end there. Boom! 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 One after another, each objective followed suit, the subsequent explosions cascading like a symphony of destruction. It didn't matter if the objective was big, small, near, far, standing, or moving at an extraordinary speed. They were all reduced to smithereens under the awed and stunned eyes of the spectators. Fiend up TED ovals on n/v/elben.co/m. Amidst the rain of debris and the thunderous symphony of explosions, Felix, with an aura as calm as a serene lake, turned his back to the spectacle he had just created. There were no triumphant smiles, no grand gestures. Instead, he simply walked away, leaving a trail of fragmented targets and awestruck spirits in his wake, like this was nothing but an everyday occurrence to him. A moment later, a final rating appeared on the screens above Goliath's dazed expression. The Traveler, 100%. As the echoes of the blast gradually faded, all eyes were locked on the nonchalant figure that was Felix. For a moment, the audience seemed to have forgotten how to breathe, the spectacle they had witnessed leaving them momentarily paralyzed. The VIP section, usually abuzz with chatter and laughter, was pin-drop silent. The silence was finally broken by a gasp from the crowd as the reality of what had happened set in. What the hell was that? Did he use telekinesis to blow them up? It can't be. What kind of imaginary power enables him to pull this off? Murmurs began to ripple through the audience like a wave, growing louder with each passing second. The word perfect could be heard whispered in disbelief, echoing throughout the Colosseum. While it seemed easy to pull off such a feat, everyone knew that it shouldn't be possible for anyone besides known veterans. After all, many targets were extremely difficult to pinpoint their position and they were immune to telekinesis, making it impossible to stop them. In the VIP section, Boss Alves and his peers who had been leisurely sipping their drinks choked on their beverages, their eyes riveted on the disintegrating targets. Staring at the departing figure of Felix, they could hardly believe what they had seen. Disbelief and shock were etched on their faces as they frantically tried to comprehend the scale of Felix's performance. A hushed whisper broke the stunned silence of the VIP section. That was, Lady Iris stumbled, unable to find the right words. Incredible. Boss Gideon completed the sentence, his eyes still locked onto Felix's retreating figure. Alves, are you sure he isn't a veteran from a faraway city who moved here? Madame Arabella asked. I don't know. Boss Alves narrowed his eyes. If it wasn't for Felix's association with Elder Kraken, he would have believed just like the others that Felix must have come from a different city. But it was known that ethereal elders pick their servants from the capital alone, which pushed many spirits to move into the capital and hope to hit the jackpot during their recruitment competitions. Still, he wasn't completely confident about his theory since he didn't find any information about Felix's existence in any of those competitions. This meant that he was either recruited directly from the shadows or he just came recently to the heavenly plane and was picked up straight away by Elder Kraken. Whatever it was, Boss Alves was beginning to find himself uncomfortable being in this conflict. Don't **SSY out too soon, he just passed the accuracy test, there are still 3 more tests and there is no way he is going to pass them. Boss Alves pushed down his emotions and hardened his expression, reminding himself of the bullshit Felix pulled against his organization. Whoa, Master is so strong. No wonder he was that confident. Meanwhile, Kura and Sekiro were left even more stunned than everyone else. Because of Felix's eccentrics and clear lack of knowledge about the heavenly plane, they had a strong belief that he was a new spirit. Yet, here he was, giving everyone a spectacle no one expected. Move to the side, Goliath ordered with a tint of irritation in his voice, not pleased in the slightest with Felix's passing. Felix did as he was told and waited for the next round of the trial to begin. It didn't take long before those other 2 fighters got eliminated like the rest, leaving him all alone. This created a weird scene as all the other groups had a sizable chunk of fighters in the second round while he was face to face with the supervisor. Next trial is a telekinesis test. You will have to obtain a perfect score in all presented challenges to pass it. Goliath said, not bothering to explain in detail. Fortunately, Felix came prepared as the information obtained by Kura had everything related to the trials in it. Start. Goliath's gaze hardened as he gestured for the telekinesis test to commence. The crowd watched with bated breath as Felix was suddenly surrounded by a flurry of objects, sharp discs, weighted spheres, and jagged stones, each suspended midair and primed to attack. There were hundreds of them, which sent shivers down each fighter's spine. He is so doomed. Sigh, even a veteran's telekinesis barrier will cave in against this barrage. Getting blacklisted is really a death sentence. On Goliath's signal, the projectiles began their assault, flying toward Felix from every direction. Whoosh. 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 Everyone anticipated that Felix would pop out his telekinesis barrier and defend himself, but instead, he simply moved, evading the speeding projectiles like he was never in their target. Whether it was Goliath, the city's upper echelon, the fighters, or the viewers, every one of them was left petrified, charmed by his movement akin to a snake getting hypnotized by a snake's charmer. Their reaction was understandable as Felix's movements were fluid like water flowing around stones. There was an uncanny grace in the way he sidestepped a spear, ducked under a flying disc, and somersaulted over a group of arrows. His every movement was in balance with his environment, creating a dance of evasion that left the crowd in awe. His eyes were the primary guide, predicting the trajectory of each projectile with an accuracy that seemed almost supernatural. One moment, he would be standing straight, the next, he would be bending backward, the projectiles missing him by a hair's breadth. At times, he would slide under the projectiles, his body nearly parallel to the ground. And at other times, he would leap into the air, twisting and turning to avoid the barrage of attacks. I think you should take a look at it. His rhythm never faltered, even when the pace quickened. Hoa! Hoa! When the viewers finally couldn't hold it in, they burst into thunderous excited cheers with each successful evasion. I can't believe this, the trial is meant to test the hardness of the telekinesis barrier, yet he hasn't materialized even one. Lady Iris covered her mouth in shock, sharing the same reaction as her peers. This. Only Boss Alves seemed to have taken it much harder as with each successful dodge, his instinct screamed at him to stay the **CK out of Felix's path as he was no ordinary individual. To pull this off, one has to be either super talented in fighting and his entire personality was oriented towards this or his battle experience is simply too godly. Boss Gideon commentated as he watched Felix land lightly on his feet without a single scratch on his body, the ground around him filled with a mountain of deadly weapons. Felix dusted his clothes nonchalantly and lifted his head up, staring at his end result on the screen. The Traveler, 0% damage. Perfect score. The condition to pass the test wasn't to use the telekinesis shield but to receive the lowest percentage of damage possible. Discover NW chapters NN0EL.com. For those fighters, the only possible way was through using their trusted barriers instead of copying Felix's method. The moment Felix read the score, he lowered his gaze a bit and eyed Goliath whose expression seemed a bit pale like he had seen an alive person. What's next? Felix called, his voice as steady as always. Telekinesis control, you need to score 1000 points in less than a minute to pass. Goliath uttered coldly. Boo. Boo. This didn't please the crowd one bit as they started to feel a sense of admiration and appreciation for Felix who was going against such biased trials and still acing them. Alas, Goliath couldn't give a shit as he was paid with the rest of the supervisors handsomely to get rid of Felix and if he failed to make it happen, there would be severe consequences. This time, several floating platforms were brought out, each sporting multiple hoops of different sizes that moved erratically in a three-dimensional space. While Felix wasn't given an explanation to make the test harder, he knew that he needed to manipulate an array of objects, spheres, cubes, and other complex shapes with telekinesis and aim them into their rightful moving hoops. The difficulty lay not just in the movement of the targets, but in the skill required to handle the different shapes and sizes, in addition to the mental energy consumption. Felix didn't use the telekinesis barrier before because he knew that his spiritual prowess wasn't in a comfortable spot yet to succeed in both tests in a perfect fashion. Now, he had to use his telekinesis control as no other method was allowed to move those objects. Start. Felix took a deep breath and extended his hand. Instantly, one of the spheres rose from the ground and hung suspended in the air. His eyes narrowed as he watched the movement of the hoops. He moved his fingers subtly, and the sphere shot forward, adjusting its path in midair to perfectly fit into a hoop that was just about to move. Cling. 10 points rewarded. The crowd broke into applause, but Felix was merely warming up. Arise. He jerked his finger to the sky and more than 100 objects flew into the sky and hovered around him akin to planets circling a star. Before anyone could react, he launched them into the moving hoops. The objects moved fluidly through the air, swerving and adjusting their paths according to the hoop's movement, and landed perfectly into their targets. Ting. 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 The onlookers were left absolutely speechless as they could only stare with widened eyes at the sight of hundreds of differently shaped objects fitting perfectly into their hoops, causing the screen to keep ringing non-stop and his score to increase explosively. 200 points, 300 points, 500 points, 1000 points. 1500 points. While Felix was given 1 minute to finish the test, he ended up putting all of the objects in their rightful hoops in less than 5 seconds, demonstrating a mysterious level of accuracy and control. As the test concluded, Felix let his hand fall to his side, a look of calm satisfaction on his face, but deep inside, he was running on fumes as his mental energy was on the verge of exhaustion. Fortunately, the telekinesis trial had only those 2 challenges and he had passed them with flying colors. What's next? He called yet again, causing Goliath to feel a sense of dread looming on his shoulders. *T, I only have 1 more trial. What do I need to do to get rid of this monster?